This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are a weekly, proudly liberal, progressive talk show, and we like to give you the information we normally said so you can think before you vote. However, this is going to keep you informed for the next few years.
And motivated even after the election.
Exactly. Good morning, Shano.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. I'm well. Thank you. Happy to be here live on We Act Radio as well as radioornot.com, SoFlo Radio, and of course our home sweet home talkingleft.com. Hope everybody is having a lovely Sunday morning and enjoying your alternative to the Sunday morning news. We grabbed a few news stories we figured everybody was either talking about or should be talking about this morning. Of course, something covered in the major news this morning is the bombing going on in Gaza by Israel. Netanyahu, apparently as of 3 hours ago, is being quoted saying he is prepared for significant expansion of the Gaza organization.
Ground troops
yes. Yes. So as of 3 hours ago, 6:45 a.m. Eastern, in Tel Aviv, Israel is planned to substantially broaden its operation in Gaza. Many humanitarian aid organizations are appalled at the bombing going on, but Israel apparently is expanding the process.
It's one of those situations where if you know just a little bit about it, you can get yourself into a whole lot of trouble figuring out who's right, who's wrong,
Absolutely.
how it started, where it started. You have two sides of a conflict, and this is as far as I'm going to go, who both believe that they're defending themselves against the other, both feel justified in what they're doing. And outward observers are, of course, trying to ascribe political reasons for what Netanyahu is doing as there's an election coming up in January. But Israel has a right to defend itself. Gaza has a right, I believe, to exist. It would be nice, I know that's a really silly word to use, to have a ceasefire and work on an actual peaceful solution, but, you know, it's been thousands of years of this.
Yes. Regardless of what your political viewpoints of the situation are, regardless of if you're taking a side or which side you're on, I don't think, or I would like to think, that nobody supports bombing and warfare and the deaths of innocent civilians. So far, 48 Palestinians, half of them civilians, including 13 children, have been reported as killed by Israeli raids. So as they have unleashed a very intensive airstrike, apparently they are expanding it to ground forces, and it's something I think we should all be watchful of in days to come.
And we know even though the president is in Asia that he's keeping an eye on it. And I think the response was, if I heard correctly this morning, was that, you know, Israel has right to defend itself. It's, you know, we'll stick with Israel, and, you know, because we are Israel's biggest friend in the Western world.
Right.
So.
You know, however that may be, I certainly hope that the death of innocent civilians stops.
Of course.
So
as we drone all over Pakistan.
Exactly. In happier news, a big victory for the international LGBT community, and it kind of gives you pause as to why this is happening in Cuba first and not here. Cuba has officially elected the first transgender woman to hold political office.
Very cool.
Isn't that interesting? A woman elected as in local government, she is a delegate, is the first known transgender person to hold public office in Cuba. And this is a big victory for the Cuban people, because Cuban authorities in the past have actually prosecuted gays and transgender LGBT people and jailed them for their sexual orientation. Hernandez herself, which is Adela Hernandez, who is biologically male but who has lived as a female all the way since childhood. She was jailed for 2 years back in the 1980s as being, quote unquote, dangerous just for being a transgender person. So very good on the Cuban people, very proud of what they did there, and hopefully we can still see more improvement in our own political community and elect more LGBT representatives. The news that has been following political stories for a few weeks now, of course, is Benghazi and the whole scandal.
Oh,
well, what'd you say?
Oh, Benghazi.
Exactly. Well, last Friday, November 16th, they finally held the intelligence briefing.
This is the closed-door meeting with Petraeus,
Yes.
et cetera.
Yes. And General Petraeus officially destroyed the Republicans' fake scandal.
To which they came up with a new one.
Yes, which is regarding Petraeus himself.
And also that someone changed the briefing. Someone took out Al-Qaeda.
Yes.
They took it out. They deleted it.
Yes.
That's the new one.
Grasping for
we
straws.
must find out who took those two words out of the briefing, because they're the ones who have caused all this trouble, because the absence of those two words meant what? Exactly.
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. The CIA and other officials, Petraeus backed the president and Susan Rice, stating the CIA and other intelligence officials had prepared the unclassified talking points on the attack for members of Congress. And those were the talking points Susan Rice used, that Fox and other Republicans were essentially saying were lies. Were lies because they didn't label the attack as terror-y enough, perhaps.
They didn't use the magic words.
They didn't use the magic word, even though the president had used that exact word in the Rose Garden the morning after.
Right. But you have to use the magic words.
Act of terror?
Exactly. They like, well, it is terrorism by Al-Qaeda. And the thing is that it's got to be an either or with them. I don't understand this.
Yeah, I don't either.
That either it has to do with resentment over some actions by the West, or it's terrorism. Why are they so mutually exclusive in the Fox world?
Yeah, apparently in Fox, only one thing can occur throughout the world at a time. Two things can never occur simultaneously. So you couldn't, for instance, have protests going on in Egypt and other nations over a ridiculously Islamophobic movie trailer, and also have an attack going on in Benghazi. Those apparently cannot happen at the same time, according to Fox.
And also, it's infuriating to watch the response to, President Obama came out and defended Susan Rice.
Yes.
Said she wasn't really involved in Benghazi. Now they're all going crazy. Well, why'd you put her out there on that Sunday morning show to talk about Benghazi? They didn't put her out on the Sunday morning show to talk about Benghazi. They put her on the Sunday morning shows to talk about the protests around the world. There were in some 20 nations. She's the UN ambassador. The fact that they wanted to all talk about Benghazi,
right,
is not the fault of the White House.
Well, the main reason I'm covering it in the news here is so that we can be one show where you can avoid hearing about it for the rest of the program. I think we've all had enough of the ridiculous scandal.
The one we're going to talk about it a little bit probably with Cliff Schecter.
Yeah.
Because, he wrote the book on McCain, and John McCain is, John McCain, known for fighting wars that are over.
Yes.
Is one of the big mouthpieces, he and Lindsey Graham. And Lindsey Graham, amazingly, after doing this, if you click on the little thing to his little bar about donating to help find out what happened in Benghazi, goes to his campaign site for the next election, because Lindsey Graham is up for it.
Oh, yeah. He's actually already running television ads for, he's already campaigning for 2014 on the Benghazi subject, on the scandal.
Nothing like politicizing four deaths.
Exactly. Nothing like just continuing to make a mockery of the American political system. Has anybody ever thought that, even if the president knew more, even if the intelligence community knew more, they maybe didn't want to come out on national television and said, yeah, we know it's this guy, we know where they are, and we're going to get them. It's
kind of right down the street, and we'll give you in real time as we try to, bust down the door. for the party who is so for national security and have claimed national security to block so much information in getting out, they want every bit of information immediately in this situation. Why? Politics. Because they believe in some way that this is going to hurt Democrats politically. And if it doesn't hurt them, the fact that it isn't out there will hurt them, because it's all about harming Obama. Period.
Right.
It's not about the truth. I really don't believe it's about the truth in this.
I don't believe it's about the truth in this at all. But, sitting there saying that the intelligence community and the administration should have openly spoken about who was to blame, where they were, and what was being done about it is kind of like your local police or detectives saying, we know who the serial killer is. He lives at, XYZ ABC Street, and we're going to get him at 12 noon. Don't give the people who you may be going to find, investigate, arrest, prosecute the heads up of saying, hey, we're coming for you. Why don't you get out of the way early?
Yeah, they might be able to get the Sunday morning shows over there.
Just perhaps.
Satellites and
yes.
things.
And in news that will make Mitt Romney and other Republicans' heads explode, just because it's awesome, Chrysler to spend $238 million in the U.S. and add 1,250 jobs in Michigan.
That's awesome.
Isn't that awesome?
That's fantastic news.
It is. Chrysler Group LLC, who majority owned by Fiat, announced Thursday that it will invest $238 million to boost engine and truck production in Michigan, and may need up to 1,250 jobs to meet the new demand. They're also spending an additional $40 million to install a flexible production line in its Trenton North plant. So Trenton, New Jersey, I presume?
I don't know. There's Trentons in
It
many
just
states.
says Trenton North plant, which can build both a V6 engine and a Tiger Shark 4-cylinder, whatever that may be. But yes, as Romney sat there and claimed Chrysler was offshoring all American lines, yep, they're actually...
Trenton, Michigan.
Trenton, Michigan. Oh, interesting.
Trenton Engine is a Chrysler automotive factory in Trenton, Michigan.
Well, wherever they may be, it's awesome to hear about new jobs being created and a company reinvesting in the American workforce. Yay to Chrysler, and we're happy to have those jobs here.
And congratulations to Tesla.
Yes, for winning the American Motor Trend Car of the Year.
Yes.
First non-combustion engine to win that award. That's really amazing.
Way to pick a winner.
Absolutely.
We shouldn't be picking winners and losers. Well, how about, considering we've done it probably since the beginning of our union, that we invest in things that are winning ideas?
Yeah. And how about we move away from fossil fuels, especially as more oil rigs are blowing up in the Gulf, which, of course, we will get to later on in the show with the one and only Desi Doyen of the Green News Report. We're also going to be speaking with Cliff Schecter of Libertas LLC, author, pundit, political relations strategist, columnist. He's just anything and everything. And Rocky Mountain Mike Hardiman, very excited about that, who made our awesome new theme song and whose stuff is played regularly on just about all the main political shows.
And he has his own show, and we're going to we thought it would be a fun way to put the election to bed, even though it's not technically to bed in a couple places, but by doing it with a smile and playing some of his bits and in remembering back,
yes,
to what spurred these masterpieces, because they're all a lot of fun.
And just because it's funny, I wanted to make sure nobody missed the news of Ecuador officials officially rejecting the plan to run the tie-wearing borough for legislature. Yes, the demand of, this is very important news, Shane.
Okay.
Very important. The demand of dozens of citizens has been denied in the Ecuadorian city of Guayaquil. Forgive me, anybody who knows I'm mispronouncing that.
Everyone knows you're mispronouncing it.
Yes. It's just if they know the correct pronunciation. There will be no donkey running for the legislature. At least 40 people have paraded their candidate through the city's streets to the electoral council offices. Mr. Burrow even wore a tie, but officials refused to let him run for the legislature seat. So, yes, very important news in Ecuador. The donkey will not be part of the legislature. But I think it's probably better than some of the candidates we have here.
It is, for sure.
Just saying.
I'm sure that there was some kind of snarky comment on the fact that it was a donkey.
Yes, yes, they
rather
did
than an
specifically
elephant.
say. Let's see if I have it printed here in this article. I don't know if this one cut it off. They did it cut it off in this article, but they did go on to say that they were not making a comment on any political party, but it was a little difficult to get an elephant to wear a tie and parade him through the streets. But yes, donkey denied is the official title there. And working our way into the news, we're going to be speaking with Cliff Schecter about economies and fiscal cliff with Cliff Schecter. The European economy has officially shrank for a second quarter in a row.
Doesn't that technically make it a recession?
It does. But with all of their austerity measures, cuts to social programs, and, just really harsh programs being implemented on the poor and working people of many European countries, it's not working. Their economy has shrank for a second quarter. The GDP of the Eurozone fell 0.1% in the last 3 months compared to the previous quarter. The European economy improved slightly from the second quarter when it contracted 0.2%, but the fourth quarter in a row was zero growth or worse. So with all of their austerity measures, all of their cuts, all of their slashing to hurt the European people, it's not benefiting their economy, and Republicans here really should be learning a lesson from that.
Yeah, and I don't think they're slashing to hurt the European people. They think that that's the only way to,
They're not doing it to hurt the people, but they're ignoring the obvious signs that it is hurting the people and that it's not working.
Of course. Well, maybe they'll turn it around. France put in a completely different, regime there. Who went? The old regime was for austerity. The new regime seems to be far more, dare I say, socialist.
Hey, we can hope.
The thing is that what you'll get is certain meme that's European socialism, and it doesn't work. Therefore, whenever an economy in Europe goes down, it's because of they
lump it all together.
They lump it all
yes.
together rather than pointing out what economic decisions have been made by those countries that cause this recession. That the policies that they are advocating here in the United States are what's causing that, not this so-called socialism.
Right. Well, and those policies are proving quarter after quarter not to work. Many of us feel like the stimulus that was, enacted here wasn't large enough, but
And
at least
so
it was.
People forgetting that 40-some% of that was tax cuts.
Right. At least it was stimulus instead of austerity measures. And although the growth we're experiencing may be very modest and shaky at times, we're not moving backwards. The more austerity measures they introduce in those countries, the more people are hurting and the more the economy is showing it's not going to improve. So we really need to take a lesson from that.
I think that I'm probably in a very small minority here, but I would prefer 20 straight quarters of 1% growth than 4 quarters of 4% and then 2 of -1 and then 3 of 6 and then 2 of -3. These bubbles and burst bubbles and burst bubbles. That slow, steady growth. I mean, any investor would say that that's a good thing. I understand that the robber barons can't make their money and flip their money as quickly in those types of economies, but that kind of steady strength is better for everyone, so long as that steady strength is shared with everyone.
Right.
So I don't know. People saying we need 4% growth, we need 5% growth. At what cost down the road?
Yeah, it needs to be something we can sustain and something that's realistic, but we definitely need to run to a break. We're going to be right back. We have Cliff Schecter coming up, Mike Hardiman, Rocky Mountain Mike, and Desi Doyen of the Green News Report. So it's going to be a big show. Have lots of stuff to talk about. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano.
I can't cook a Thanksgiving dinner. All I can make is cold cereal and maybe toast. That's right. I've seen you make toast.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Astronaut, you're up. You'll be meeting with Wish Kid Brandon.
Roger, Brandon.
His wish is to see a space shuttle launch.
All systems are go. We are clear for liftoff.
This year, more than 27,000 children will be diagnosed with a life-threatening medical condition.
And Cowboy,
Yes, ma'am.
you'll be meeting with Shayla at a dude ranch in San Antonio.
Let's saddle up.
Some will miss school, some will miss time with their family and friends.
Princess, are you here?
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for rescuing me from that evil witch.
Juliana wishes for a princess-themed room makeover.
That sounds magical.
But with your help, the Make-A-Wish Foundation can lift their spirits and give them a special kind of hope.
Pirate,
Yar!
you're up for Isaac's wish.
Aye, aye, Captain.
The wishes of thousands of children are waiting to come true.
You can help make my wish happen. Visit wish.org today.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Hi, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly citizen investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow from bradblog.com. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the pages of bradblog.com and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out the liars, frauds, and phonies, and we'll even give kudos to the good guys if we can find any. Stories you won't hear anywhere else. We'll report on politics, elections, election reform, mainstream corporate media failure, media reform, global warming denialism, and everything before, during, and after. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday, now a full hour, 3 to 4 p.m., right here on Pacifica Radio's KPFK, and coast to coast and around the globe on kpfk.org.
Hank Action News is proud to be sponsored by Healthcare for America Now. HCAN is a national coalition of more than 1,000 groups in 50 states, representing 30 million people. HCAN works to promote, defend, implement, and improve the Affordable Care Act at both the state and federal levels. They also try to protect Medicare and Medicaid, increase corporate accountability, and confront forces that seek to take away critical services. HCAN believes in creating jobs, not cutting programs people depend on. HCAN runs comprehensive issue campaigns that mobilize people at the grassroots and define the public debate. HCAN is fighting to protect, implement, and improve the new health care law through national and state-based legislative and regulatory campaigns built on grassroots action, public education, communications, policy analysis, and groundbreaking research. HCAN has become a respected voice and national leader on health care while continuing to focus on aggressive field activity. Support HCAN, Healthcare for America Now.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back. Good morning, everybody. We're just a few minutes away from speaking with the great Cliff Schecter. And we're going to be talking to him about many things, but specifically about the fiscal cliff. And we promise not to make too many jokes about Cliff discussing the fiscal cliff.
Not quite.
Yeah. In preparation of dealing with the so-called fiscal cliff, the top lawmakers met at the White House this week to discuss what they expect for the budget deal. And although 3 out of the 4 essentially...
Who are the four?
Who are the four top lawmakers? Harry Reid, John Boehner, Mitch McConnell, and Nancy Pelosi.
So majority and minority leaders of both.
Yes. John Boehner, Harry Reid, and Nancy Pelosi all expressed hopeful attitudes that they would be able to make a deal.
And John Boehner is significant in that, he's the one who's going to have to put this bill on the floor.
Yes.
And I would say that what would concern me, if the goal is to get this done before January 1st, if it is to do it in the lame duck session, that John Boehner would not want to do that, in that come next Congress, he would not be able to get his speakership back if that's what he wants.
Well, there's a lot of speculation that he won't be able to get it back anyhow. But
But he seems positive. He's definitely in a conciliatory, I'm willing to budge move.
Yes, and in all fairness,
I'm glad.
as he has been for 2 years, but he's been he's essentially been held hostage by the freshman Tea Partiers.
To which he had a phone call about a week back
and said essentially, get in line, knock it off. We need to move past this. But all three of them said that they realize there's going to have to be compromise. But to sum it up, Ms. Pelosi said it the best, Speaker Pelosi.
Leader Pelosi.
Leader Pelosi. We have the cornerstones. We have the cornerstones of being able to work something out. We're both going to have to give up some of the things that we know are a problem. Now, I think this makes a lot of Democrats uneasy, and we worry about social programs being put on the chopping block. I hope that the Democrats stand strong against that. But, of course, Mitch McConnell, the turtle, has to be the stick in the mud for the whole bunch. He says, we're prepared to put revenues on the table, provided we fix the real problem, meaning social programs, as he likes to call them, entitlements.
He's still bound and determined to cut social safety nets, because with the hand they still have.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. I really, really hope that Democrats in both the Senate and the House, as well as the president, realize that they were elected. They were given a second chance in many cases here because the people want those programs protected. I hope that they remember that. I don't think that people will be so forgiving in 2014 and 2016 if those programs are put on the table. So we have to run to a quick break again because we ran long in that first segment, but we can't be late for Mr. Cliff Schecter. We have him coming up next. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and Cliff Schecter coming up next.
I told him about the big turkey party you're having, and he's sure as folks will let him come. This is going to be the biggest bash of the year.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Politics brings out people's best and worst, and the deeply weird. For example, the 2012 prize for stupidest things said about women was in the bag for those two GOP Senate candidates who flashed voters with gross displays of their masculine boorishness and ignorance on the topic of rape. But then, out of far-right field came Janice Lane to snatch the prize from the men. President of the Central Mississippi Tea Party, Ms. Lane blurted to a reporter that the worst change in American politics was letting women vote. There is nothing worse than a bunch of mean, hateful women, she explained. They are diabolical, double-minded. You can never trust them. Janice added that she always preferred to have a male boss. Speaking of which, take Donnie Trump, please. On election night, he surpassed his own world record in the egomaniacal high jump by sending tweets complaining that Obama was being declared president even though he had lost the popular vote. Revolution, tweeted the twit. Let's fight like hell and stop this great and disgusting injustice. Only, Obama had won the popular vote, leaving the penthouse revolutionary looking even more ridiculous than usual. Maybe Holly Solomon has the only effective solution for shutting down the Donald's irritating ego explosions. A Romney backer from suburban Phoenix, she was not only distraught that Obama had been reelected, but also infuriated that her hubby, Daniel, had failed to vote, as though he had personally caused Romney's loss. Finally, her fury erupted in a parking lot where he had gotten out of the car as she was yelling at him for his civic inadequacy. Fury turned into bedlam, for Holly chased him in the car, still yelling, and ran him down, leaving poor Daniel pinned under the vehicle in critical condition. This is Jim Hightower saying, be careful, it's weird out there.
Need an antidote to the progressive blues? Want some good news about how grassroots folks are rebelling against the corporate powers and winning? Well, here's an easy-to-swallow pill for you, the Hightower Lowdown. Hightower's monthly newsletter will give you the lowdown, even as it lifts you up. It's 4 pages a month, jam-packed with facts you can use, actions you can take, and Jim's own Texas humor, all for only $15 a year. To become a lowdowner, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Members of Congress, listen up as you get back into session. The people have spoken, and here's what they told you on taxes, Social Security, Medicare, the national debt, and the so-called grand bargain. A Hard Research Associates poll done November 5th and 6th revealed 2 very strong messages from voters. The rich need to pay more taxes, their fair share of taxes, and Social Security and Medicare should be protected from cuts. Pollster Guy Molyneux.
You can see by an even more overwhelming margin, voters were saying they want to protect Social Security and Medicare from cuts, not that they were looking to reduce spending on those programs in service of deficit reduction. So defense of the safety net was perhaps an even more strong consensus than the need to raise taxes on the wealthy and corporations.
Voters do want Medicare to negotiate the price of prescription drugs to save money that way. Molyneux says that voters overwhelmingly said no to raising the Social Security retirement age, and just 16% support a grand bargain that overhauls the tax code, cuts Social Security and Medicare, and reduces the budget deficit. Molyneux also says that polling results show Democrats won decisively on the issue of taxes.
American voters were saying that for the first time, really, in my memory, Democrats had won the tax issue. What had been probably the most important issue for Republicans for over a generation now, the issue of taxes, worked for the benefit of Democrats in this election cycle. We asked voters, were you trying to send the message that we want to make sure the wealthy start paying their fair share of taxes? 62% of American voters said that was the message they were trying to send. Only 33% agreed with Mitt Romney that we should be trying to reduce tax rates on taxpayers at all income levels.
Walmart warehouse workers in Mira Loma, California will be staging a one-day walkout on Thursday. The workers are trying to get the company's attention so it will address what they allege to be unsafe working conditions. The workers are employed by WareStaff, a warehouse staffing company that supplies workers for warehouse work. However, as a Walmart contractor, the workers say the world's largest retailer could put pressure on the contractor to improve working conditions. Thursday's strike action could be a preview of a nationwide Walmart walkout at stores across the country on Black Friday. Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, is often the biggest shopping day of the year. A number of organizations are seeking to make the strike viral, using the internet to spread the word. There's even an online option to sponsor Walmart workers who go out on strike so they don't lose out on all of their wages. This newscast is made possible in part through underwriting from the IBEW, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, and by OPEIU, the Office and Professional Employees International Union. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
Hey, Dad, how do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are having some technical difficulties on the phone here. Let's see if we can hear Cliff Schecter. Let's see if we can hear him now. Cliff, can you hear me? Hold on one second, Cliff, if you can hear me. Cliff, can you hear me?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yay, I can hear you. We're having a technical difficulty with our hard phone system, but apparently the screening system is working okay, so that's good.
Good. Well, whatever happens, somehow we made it work.
Thank you so much for getting up so early with us, Cliff. For anybody who doesn't know about Cliff's great work, he is an author, pundit, public relations strategist, columnist for Al Jazeera English, The Guardian, Huffington Post. I don't think there's anything you don't do, Mr. Cliff Schecter.
I didn't get enough sleep last night, too. Does that count?
I suppose it counts.
I promise you there are plenty of good things that I don't do. If I sat here and told you about my high school chemistry grades, you'd freak out right away and run in the other direction. We just all have to find the few things we're good at.
Well, we promised we would not make too many fiscal Cliff jokes while speaking with you, but you are so knowledgeable about so many things, and with this, we've been calling it the so-called fiscal cliff because I don't really believe it's much of a cliff per se. What are your thoughts?
Bump in the road?
Yeah, what are your thoughts on the subject?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the not making too many jokes, but go right ahead. I make jokes myself about it. As I like to say, I feel like somebody who had their own name and then it becomes famous through like a serial killer.
Yes.
Destroy your name forever. Well, you know, there's obviously this process. These guys has been set in place where if these guys don't do anything, taxes are going to go up and spending is going to be cut. And the thing is that it's a really easy thing to handle. I mean, that's what I keep saying, which is amazing, is that what bothers me, which often bothers me, is anybody who's been alive, let's say if you're north of the age of 25 and you remember all this stuff in the early to mid-90s when, like, you know, little crazy Ross Perot was about to jump off the moon because, you know, our deficits were going to destroy the world as we knew it and our debt. And it was handled, you know. I mean, Bill Clinton raised taxes on top earners, and the budget was brought into balance, and there was no Armageddon.
Yeah.
And what happened right after that, a Republican president who wasn't really elected but somehow got into office just decided that would be all money he as Mitt Romney would say, he would give away in gifts to his friends.
Yes, actually, it appears, according to Truthout, you know, with all Romney's talk about gifts, that's why Obama won the election, that when you boil down gifts versus policy, Romney was the one who was really looking to hand out some gifts with additional tax breaks, gifts for for-profit colleges, and gifts to private banks that issue student loans.
I mean, that's what the right does all the time. I mean, if your version of if you view government as something that we've all created, as we have a public commons and we've created it as the best way to sort of organize ourselves and provide for our security and you know the rest, then you would say that if you read that part of the Constitution, which I like to read, you know, the beginning, where I talk about the general welfare and domestic tranquility, then you'd say government has a role in providing health care to people. I would call it a right of people to have it. You know, government has a role in providing services for people that need them, which is what President Obama was trying to, was saying he would do, as opposed to these guys that are just handing out stuff to people that don't need it. If you're Michelle Bachmann getting like $250,000 in farm subsidies, that's okay. If you're somebody who's middle class who got that, that would just be terrible.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? For them to get, you know, $10,000 a year in food stamps or unemployment, if they're lucky, you know, $10,000 a year. That's a gift, but those $250,000 in farm subsidies, that's perfectly okay.
Right. All the military stuff that our own military says they don't even want, but will make defense contractors that give people like Mitt Romney lots of money in campaigns rich. Yeah, we should go ahead and build all of that. It won't help anybody. There's no actual purpose for it. It in the end ends up wasting all sorts of money that could be spent in building infrastructure, doing other things that provide jobs for people. Yeah. But, you know, that's not a gift.
Nation building here at home.
Yeah, crazy stuff, I know.
So President Obama has come out with his beginning position of demanding $1.6 trillion in tax increases, which sounds like a lot when most people factor them in, but that's over a very long period of time. And I think that the American people voted in this election that that's the method they want, as opposed to cuts in, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Do you think he's actually going to get $1.6 trillion in tax increases?
Let me start also by saying, which I find this amazingly ironic that, again, that people have such short memories and nobody's brought this up. That is the exact number of tax cuts that George W. Bush, when he was not elected in 2000 by 500,000 negative votes, he didn't get, and of course hid 20 or 30 or however many thousand votes in Florida and got put in as our president. He still felt that he had enough of a mandate at that point to come in and propose what? $1.6 trillion, that exact number, in tax cuts, mostly for affluent people who didn't deserve them or need them. I shouldn't say deserve them. There are people that work hard, but people that didn't need them. This was, again, after Reaganomics had caused these huge deficits, and President Clinton came in and raised taxes on top earners and did smart things and balanced the budget. And it's like, so they want to go through this process again. A Democrat has to clean up their mess and has to cut, and you do that through cutting programs that go to real people. Not military hardware that won't be used, or we could go into it here from allowing the government to bulk negotiate for drugs for Medicare, and that would cut down Medicare costs to the government. Hell, if we listen to states like Colorado and Washington and ended the drug war tomorrow.
Yeah, that would save a few bucks throughout the country.
Our criminal justice system spends on housing people, on arresting, police time, court time, lost productivity and ruined lives and the rest. I mean, there's so many ways you can just easily. That's why I don't buy any of this stuff. People, fiscal cliff. Yes. Oh no, we're in danger. We're really not. There's just so many ways we're wasting money that we can take care of this. So I just want to make that point because I really want to make sure people remember that we've been through this before. This is history repeating itself. Republicans muck things up with their economic policies that don't work, and they try to balance the budget and try to get Democrats to do it by cutting programs that actually do work. And then they just plan to take that whatever surplus you create and use it on tax cuts for their friends. That's the way it works. But I don't want to get away from your question, which is, will he get the $1.6 trillion? Probably not. But I like where he's beginning.
Yeah. At least he's not beginning in a place that's already what most progressives feel is defeat.
That's exactly right. I mean, what bothered a lot of us last time is he won with such an enormous mandate, and the Republicans, in their philosophy, their leader at the time, had been so discredited. And we felt like he came in, I don't think I felt like it, I think it was pretty objectively true. He came in and was willing to meet these guys before there were any public negotiations, before he did any barnstorming in their states and campaigning and using the bully pulpit or the 13 million member email list he had built throughout the campaign and asking us to get involved and fight for it. That it seemed like he was willing to go 2/3 of the way down the road towards them, and that was just maddening. And so I have to say, we're so far in his behavior and his posture, I've really liked seeing what I'm seeing from him in saying $1.6 trillion. I've liked what I've seen from him in saying, basically to John McCain, shut the hell up about Susan Rice.
Yes.
You've got a problem. You've got
I loved that.
And come talk to me. And then I've liked the posture and inviting progressives to sit down and meet with him. And I've liked the posture of progressives even more, that we've gone in and the campaign hasn't stopped for us. I mean, nobody's going after the president, as we won't until he shows us we have to. But we're out there, whether it's you're reading columns or you're seeing, you're seeing people go out anywhere from comment sections at blogs to people who write columns carried around the country to people on TV, and wherever, that we're continuing to fight for this, for what's right.
Yeah, I agree with you that there's been a lot of changes, especially in his demeanor. I feel like he is being much more aggressive. He is being much more assertive in standing up for the middle class. He came out and said he will not sign under any circumstances an extension of the Bush tax cuts. I think that means all the way up until and perhaps past, if they have to go over this so-called fiscal cliff. Let him, let that day come and go. Let all the tax cuts expire, then bring back the tax cuts for 98% of Americans and say, here you go, Republicans, you don't have the 2% to protect anymore. Now tell the American people you're not going to support tax breaks for them.
That's exactly right. I mean, that's the thing here, is that they have no leverage in any way you can imagine. The scenario, you just talked about as a completely plausible one. You've got, in addition to that, again, Obama just won the election, and with a landslide electoral margin and a popular vote growing towards 3%. Yes, world, anyone listening out there, we are still counting votes because we still have the worst electoral system outside of Somalia. There's simply no reason to deal with these people.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is they have nothing now. And they've shown themselves to be bereft of all common sense. I mean, John McCain is basically a walking aneurysm waiting to happen.
As is Mitch McConnell.
Right, and they've proven themselves to be treacherous and not, untrustworthy. So they can, it's not to say that you don't sit down with them if they're willing to. Sure. And whatever barely moderate members of the Republican caucus that are left, I can't pinpoint who they are, but assuming there are any of them that are willing to sit down and sure. I mean, it doesn't mean reject out of hand. I mean, you're going to need a few Republicans in the House to do this thing.
Yeah, it's very interesting that you make that point because, John Boehner, or as we, fondly term him, John Boner, or call him.
Well, that's what his parents called him.
He has come out quite openly saying that he's willing to compromise, and he has pushed the freshman Tea Party members of the House to do so as well. A lot of political media on the left is kind of chastising him as if not believing him, kind of picking on him, making fun of him, which I know we all love to do. It's fun. But I'm wondering if this isn't a time we shouldn't be extending the olive branch, essentially saying, yes, anybody who's willing to compromise, welcoming those people, applauding those people, and giving them more credit, and, not maybe holding them to count at this particular moment for all their past discretions.
In other words, acting like adults as opposed to the other side that tends to act constantly like children if they don't have everything they want. I would agree with that. Here's how I would put it, the way I see it, which is I would say, absolutely, we want to work together. We've wanted to for 4+ years now. But, you're going to have to be reminded of two things coming into this. Number one, I won.
Yep.
And in the Senate, we picked up seats. And in an unbelievable environment in the Senate, we picked up seats. And we picked up seats in the House.
And the House, clearly more people voted for Democrats in the House than for Republicans.
The entire world.
Right.
And we picked up seats. And we still picked up, I don't know, now that a few seats that were undecided have come in, maybe the number has gone up. It was a +7 before, but, that in the House. I mean, a decent showing in the House, and it would. I mean, as you pointed out, we won more seats, we won more votes in the House. We would have won back the House if we didn't have this gerrymandered. The big states like Ohio and Florida and others that were gerrymandered after 2010. So what it comes down to is that there's that, which is yes, we're negotiating, but you're going to come more to my side because I won.
Yeah.
We had a debate about what people wanted going forward, and they chose my way, not yours.
Right. I don't say concede on any point.
No, I know you don't. I'm just sort of giving you my perspective on how you go into this. And it seems like so far the president's doing that by saying $1.6 trillion. He's saying, you know what? I'm giving you my number because I won. And then the second thing, of course, is, and by the way, you have absolutely no leverage. If you don't do this, as you just pointed out, taxes on your friends on the top are going to go up anyhow, and then we're going to vote on a bill to lower taxes on 98% of the people next year. And if you don't do it, well, guess what? Then I'm going to sit there and I'm going to come to your states, particularly those states where I won bigger than you did.
Yeah.
And I'm going to remind everybody that, I'm going to come and visit my Republican friends in Florida and in Ohio, and other states, Wisconsin, and a variety of different states where I won and you lost, and I'm gonna, and I'm more popular than you are, and I'm gonna make sure to tell your constituents that the reason why they're getting their taxes raised is because of you. And I've got a much bigger microphone than you do.
Well,
So
Cliff
good luck there.
Schecter, you can always have as big of a microphone here as you want. We appreciate you taking time with us, especially so early in the morning. You are brilliant and wise, and you always make the show better. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
You guys are too kind, but thank you for having me on. I always appreciate being here.
Absolutely. Cliff Schecter, everybody. Big round of applause. Cliff Schecter, LibertasLLC.com, at Cliff Schecter on Twitter. Check his column out at Al Jazeera English The Guardian, Huffington Post, and more. And we will be right back here on Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. We've got a few election law reforms coming up, and we're really excited about that. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. We'll be right back.
Are you living in a progressive talk void? If so, be sure to visit leftwingradiostations.com. The state-by-state listing is a quick and easy way to find any left-wing talk radio station across America, from sea to shining sea. Your progressive talk nirvana is only a click away at leftwingradiostations.com. Be sure to like Left-Wing Radio Stations on Facebook and share it with your friends. leftwingradiostations.com. United we stand.
Hi, this is Brad Friedman, your friendly citizen, investigative blogger, journalist, troublemaker, muckraker, and all-around swell fellow from bradblog.com. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday from 3 to 4 p.m. 1 hour of troublemaking and muckraking ripped from the pages of bradblog.com and sometimes from the dark recesses of my mind. We'll have investigative interviews with newsmakers, we'll call out the liars, frauds, and phonies, and we'll even give kudos to the good guys if we can find any. Stories you won't hear anywhere else. We'll report on politics, elections, election reform, mainstream corporate media failure, media reform, global warming denialism, and everything before, during, and after. Join me for the Bradcast every Wednesday, now a full hour, 3 to 4 p.m. right here on Pacifica Radio's KPFK and coast to coast and around the globe on kpfk.org.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hi, this is Tom Hartman.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Schuster of Take Action News.
I'm Brad Friedman of bradblog.com.
Hi, I'm cartoonist and agent provocateur P.S. Mueller.
This is Nicole Bell of crooksandliars.com, and this is...
You're listening to
and watching
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
You can't have for-profit programming in the public good. That's a contradiction. Because realistically, if it's for the public good, then it can't also be for-profit. That's sort of the notion of why we need more PBS and NPR and nonprofit co-ops and whatever you can find in terms of nonprofit media. It's sort of what we're doing here. And, there's no real reason to make money off this, because if we did, it would really conflict with what we're saying.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
Arr, mateys. Welcome to the ocean. I've sailed the seven seas 100 times and found something I like even more than me treasure. 'Tis the ocean, beautiful and clear. Right now I be sailing over the Great Barrier Reef. It just shivers me timbers thinking of all the fish and coral below me. Wait, what's that floating by? A plastic bag? By Blackbeard's eye patch, that's disgusting. Why did you know that many of these things come from folks throwing them carelessly on the ground? It be true. Lend us a hand by always recycling and disposing of your trash properly. Boys, get the plank ready. Somebody's got to dive in and get that bag. Any volunteers? Cannons. All right, fine. I'll do it myself. Cannonball! Find out what you can do to help keep the oceans healthy at keepoceansclean.org. Brought to you by the Keep Oceans Clean Alliance and the Ad Council.
SoFloRadio.com remains on the air with free archives thanks to the support of our listeners. Help keep us on the air by clicking the donate button on SoFloRadio.com. And thank you for your generous support.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. Big thanks to Cliff Schecter for joining us last segment. You can, again, check out his stuff at Libertas LLC or on Twitter at Cliff Schecter. All the links will be up as usual after the show. Did you know, Shano, in response to 7, 8, 9-hour lines, people fainting in line to vote, there are some great Democrats in the House and Senate that want to do something about it.
Amen.
Yes.
I'm so glad to hear that.
There
What
are-
is it they're doing?
There are at least 3 new bills proposed for election reform so far.
Let me guess the names. The Help America Vote Act for real this time, I swear.
No. The first one is the Voter Empowerment Act of 2012, offered by John Lewis and Kristen Gillibrand.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, it would be national rules allowing online registration, same-day registration, automatically restoring the right to vote for felons after they serve their sentences, prohibiting election supervisors from participating in political campaigns, and setting national standards for voting machines.
Great idea.
Yeah.
How do they get the authority to do this?
Well, it has just been introduced.
I understand you can introduce a law all day long, but does Congress have authority to dictate to states how they run their state elections? Because I believe under the Constitution. I understand they did the Help America Vote Act.
I think they're just national standards, and then states can meet or, hey, exceed those standards, but setting a bare minimum floor.
But what if they decide we don't like? I'm not trying to be too much of a contrarian here, but what if Oklahoma says federal government go to heck?
I don't know. It's
we're
not
going to do it our way, and
I don't know.
Yeah, I was just wondering.
I think maybe establishing a federal right to vote.
Well, that would be, a constitutional amendment would.
But so far, that bill has 140 House co-sponsors and 4 Senate co-sponsors, none of which are Republican.
Well,
Big
we're not
shocker
surprised
there.
by that.
The next one, the Lewis L. Redding Fair, Accurate, Secure, and Timely, acronym FAST Voting Act of 2012, offered up by Senator Chris Coons, Democrat of Delaware. And this is an interesting one for your previous question, Shane, would simply reward states that make voting faster and more accessible with federal challenge grants.
Cool.
Basically, states offering same-day registration, ample early voting, and no excuse absentee voting would be eligible for
extra funding for election purposes.
Yes, and also, big shocker here, lots of Democrats support the bill, no Republicans support.
They're not big into the voting.
Well, it seems like they're not big into the whole democratic process, but...
As the voting populace goes down, their leverage goes up.
Yes, I've heard that somewhere before.
Somewhere, I don't know.
Yeah. And the last, but definitely not least, any of these would thrill me to be enacted. The Streamlining Improving Methods at Polling Locations and Early Voting Act, acronym being the Simple Voting Act. And that would... This is offered by Representative George Miller, a Democrat in California, would require all states to provide at least 15 days of early voting for federal elections and ensure each voting precinct had sufficient poll workers and machines from preventing lines to ever exceed 1 hour. And so I guess they're getting your question, in response to your question there, they're getting around it with only applying to federal elections.
Right, but I'm just, they are federal elections for federal seats, but I think that the way the Constitution is set up is it pretty much says states, you get to pick your electors to go to the Electoral College.
Well,
states, you get to pick your senator. There is an amendment to the Constitution that says it has to be by popular vote. And states, you get to pick your representatives to send to D.C. States, in other words, you get to pick.
Well,
So
maybe this
I'm
is a damn good start to a federal right to vote.
Federal right to vote would have to be a constitutional amendment, I believe. But I'm just wondering if there's some kind of, we have the carrot ideas out there. I wonder if there's a stick anywhere in terms of some kind of punishment if they don't.
Yeah.
What they do with the highway funds all the time.
Well,
I'm just wondering. This is just wondering out loud.
I certainly think all of those are better than the current method, which apparently allows Karl Rove to deploy some sneaky tricks. We are going to talk about that and what's being done about it, or what's been done about it, coming up here in just a moment or so. You are listening to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Very, very interesting story coming up here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and you're definitely going to want to stick around for this one.
It's Tuesday, October 13, 2012.
Elections have consequences.
We want our children to live in America that isn't threatened by the destructive power of a warming planet.
Obama talks climate change, but will he and can he deliver? Grover Norquist versus the Koch brothers. The U.S. projected to become the Saudi Arabia of oil. Plus,
this was cataclysmic for New York.
Superstorm Sandy was very expensive.
All of that and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comments.
Let me get this right. So all the record temperatures throughout America this year, all the severe droughts and land burning up, and now the severe storms, etc., not climate change. Turns out, gays.
Oh, I knew it was the gays. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Des, well, we're back after taking a week off to cover the elections. I trust there was no green news at all that happened over the past week.
Oh, yeah, there was nothing really important to cover. But we will, by the way, have plenty of catch-up on our website at greennews.bradblog.com.
What do you got for us today?
Well, first, this happened.
But despite all our differences, most of us share certain hopes for America's future. We want our children to live in America that isn't threatened by the destructive power of a warming planet.
The destructive power of the what?
He's talking about climate change.
Who was that
global warming
guy?
There. Yeah, I know. That's President Obama in the middle of his victory speech on election night. He actually referred to global warming for the first time in ages. And that was for the first time in a speech that a lot of Americans actually saw. But the question now is, will he and can he deliver? With the Republican majority in the House of Representatives, there is only so much that he can do. Very soon, Obama will have to make a final decision on whether to approve the controversial Keystone XL tar sands pipeline from Canada. More immediate is the looming expiration of the crucial wind energy production tax credit that expires in December. The U.S. wind industry warns that 37,000 workers will lose their jobs immediately if it's not renewed. The Republican majority in the House is against renewing the wind energy tax credit, even as they favor keeping billions in annual permanent oil industry subsidies.
Now, they were against renewing the wind tax credit before the election. Are they still against it even after the election?
Very much so. It seems like they're going to try to use it as a bargaining chip.
Message not received.
Now, some groups have floated the idea of a carbon tax as these so-called fiscal cliff negotiations get underway on Capitol Hill. A carbon tax on heat-trapping carbon emissions would force polluters to pay for their pollution and fund clean energy projects, and it would also reduce the deficit by bringing in an estimated $150 billion a year in new revenue. Even Grover Norquist of Americans for Tax Reform was open to the idea of a carbon tax. He said on Monday that it wouldn't violate his anti-tax pledge. That is until American Energy Alliance, a Koch brothers front group, smacked him down hard, saying, quote, Grover, just butch it up and oppose this lousy idea directly.
Wow. Now, we should tell folks that the carbon tax was the more progressive way to deal with greenhouse gases. But in trying to compromise, the Obama administration and Democrats had gone along with the idea of cap and trade, which was initially a Republican idea until the Republicans decided they didn't like it anymore either. So now we may go back to the more progressive idea of just a direct carbon tax.
Well, it's possible, but the White House says that President Obama has no plans at this point to introduce a carbon tax. We'll see what happens. The United States could overtake Saudi Arabia as the world's biggest oil producer by the year 2020. That's according to the International Energy Agency in their annual World Energy Outlook report. Based on current trends, the Paris-based IEA projects that the U.S. would be a net exporter of oil by 2030. That's because of unconventional drilling techniques like hydraulic fracturing and projected improvements in energy efficiency like Obama's new mileage standards for cars. But the IEA report also acknowledges that this would be dangerous for the climate, saying that no more than a third of those proven reserves of fossil fuels could be burned if we want to avoid global temperatures from rising beyond the 2 degrees Celsius limit that's been recommended by the global scientific community. Meanwhile, climate change is on the mind of New York Governor Andrew Cuomo in the aftermath of Superstorm Sandy.
We have to make sure that we're prepared for when this happens again.
In a press conference on Monday, Governor Cuomo said he will seek $30 billion in additional additional federal aid from Congress to rebuild New York City's aging infrastructure to withstand future extreme weather impacts due to climate change.
It's a wise investment for the federal government to help us build this economy back. The sooner we get the New York economy running, the better for this state and this nation.
Building resilience into New York City's infrastructure will cost tens of billions of dollars, but that's still cheaper than the $60 billion in losses caused by Superstorm Sandy.
For more on all of these stories and the ones we couldn't get to today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider a donation to help sponsor the Green News Report. We rely on you to stay on your public airwaves. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Hopefully everybody is awake now, bright and early on this Sunday morning, and enjoying the show so far. We're going to be speaking with Mike Hardiman, a.k.a. Rocky Mountain Mike, coming up this hour, and going over some of his great parodies and amazing work that he has done throughout this election. This election that apparently Karl Rove tried to steal. For anybody who missed this story, there are now claims on wonkette.com, for anybody who's not familiar with the site, that Anonymous is making claims that it stopped Karl Rove from hacking the election by hacking Orca, the vote, the software that Karl Rove and others employed. In a letter that supposedly came from Anonymous, I almost said Occupy, dated November 8th, 2012, it states, "Greetings to the good people of the Velvet Revolution. Pleased we were to see that you put your faith in the hands of we protectors of democracy, and tempted too to claim your generous reward. But wealth does not drive us. 2 months prior to your offer, we chose to take action against those who have subverted the will of the people in past elections, which resulted in terrible destruction across the globe. We began following the digital traffic of one Karl Rove, a disrespecter of the rule of law, knowing that he claimed to be kingmaker while grifting vast wealth from barons who gladly handed him gold to anoint another king while looking the other way. After a rather short time, we identified the digital structure of Karl Rove's operation and even that of his ORCA, O-R-C-A, it's an acronym, not exactly sure what it stands for. This was an easy task, they say, in that barn doors were left open and the wind swept us inside. This is a great letter, and it's definitely written in the style that Anonymous normally puts out. They go on to state, we coded and created what we call the Great Oz, a targeted, password-protected firewall that we tested and refined over the past week. We placed this code on more than one of the digital tunnels and their destinations that Karl Rove's not-so-smart worker bees plan to use on election night. Essentially, these back doors to the voting systems were left open, as they say. The wind swept them inside. They essentially coded firewalls over each one of these doors. This is all alleged, but it would explain Karl's surprise on election night. They state these children of his were at a loss. How many times and how many passwords did they try? Exactly 105. So if this letter is correct, and Anonymous really blocked Karl Rove from stealing the election, 105 times did his programmers still continue to try and hack the system. And if this letter is correct, and Anonymous has stopped the theft of the election, the last line in their letter is perhaps the best. We may just put all the evidence into a tidy little package and give it to a painfully bored nemesis hanging out in a certain embassy in London. Who may that be? Julian Assange, perhaps? Perhaps just leaking some great information to WikiLeaks? Oh, please, let it be so. As much as we don't like to think that any election or any system is that easily stolen, I think many of us out there already assumed that it is, or that it was, or that it has been in the past, or some variation thereof. Many of us have heard tales of hackers doing amazing things both for good and bad. And many of us have thought about Anonymous either as an anarchy group or mischievous or perhaps even cyber terrorists, as the government labels them. But if this situation is true, if this group has protected the very democratic principles that allow us to run our country, then perhaps it sheds a different light upon your views of Anonymous. Perhaps it doesn't. I imagine if you're Karl Rove, it certainly doesn't change your views of Anonymous. But it is very interesting when you consider Ohio in the 2004 election. In 2004, the official count at 11 p.m. had John Kerry far ahead of George Bush, exit polls also showing ahead by 4.2%. A huge discrepancy between those polls and the final result that allowed George Bush to win the election. In the middle of the night, about 300,000 votes switched, giving George Bush a 118,000 vote lead, a margin of about 2.5%, allowing him to win Ohio and thus the nation. The difference here, another reason Karl Rove may have been surprised, whether or not this anonymous event occurred or not. The difference is that Obama didn't need Ohio to win. He had won in so many other states that it was just icing on the cake. It turned a win into a mandate. It turned a win into a landslide, but he didn't even need it. While Karl Rove sat dumbfounded on Fox, trying to beg Mitt Romney not to concede. Was it that he planned to challenge? Was it that he planned to steal hundreds of thousands of votes in the middle of the night like he did to John Kerry? Or was it that his little worker bees, as this anonymous letter said, were continuously trying time and time and time again to break the firewall that Anonymous put over those back doors? It's a very interesting theory, and it will be very, very interesting if information and documentation ends up in the hands of WikiLeaks and Julian Assange, because that would only be one of the reasons Karl Rove should be prosecuted. In fact, this watchdog group, Citizens for Responsibility and Ethics in Washington, otherwise known as CREW, is already calling for Karl Rove to be investigated by both the Federal Elections Commission, the FEC, as well as the FBI, because his little super PAC, Crossroads GPS, well, perhaps didn't disclose campaign dollars as federal elections law stated that he should. In fact, in the Sherrod Brown race in Ohio, Karl Rove received an anonymous $3 million donation, and he never provided information to the Elections Commission as to who that donation was from. So while they spent more money on that race to try and defeat Senator Sherrod Brown than anywhere else in the country, they didn't disclose that information. So perhaps Karl Rove will just be investigated for multiple things. And may we finally be rid of him.
Yeah. We were talking in the last segment about election reform in terms of voting machines, voting lines, registration, and all of that. One thing that would be a great reform to have, I don't quite know how to do this, but when we talk about these charges being brought up about spending during elections, so often those things are litigated after the election is over, and you cannot go back
and undo
that. There probably should be some kind of streamlined system in order to hear those things before an election, because you can do so much damage, and you can actually have someone who's just essentially a kamikaze, a fundraiser who says, I'm going to go to prison. I'm going to do all these illegal things because I'm not going to get prosecuted until after someone has been elected, using funds that are outside of what's legal in an election. And this could be one of those situations.
Yeah, and I think it begs the question of, will this just be the end of Karl Rove? I mean, we can all hope. Will we finally be done listening to his nonsense on Fox News and hearing about his treasonous ways? Or, Shane, I think you proposed this question last night when we were talking about this. Could this be the end of electronic voting machines? Many smart people have said that as soon as Democrats figured out how to hack the electronic voting machines, it would be the end of electronic voting machines. And perhaps with Anonymous and other Democratic institutions saying, hey, we're going to take part in this too, but do so just to protect the electorate, at least hopefully, perhaps we'll see a sudden desire by those on the right to return to paper ballots. I think if we do, it's quite telling as to why they wanted the electronic voting machines in the first place.
Right, and the thing is, Republicans were fine with electronic voting machines being flawed so long as it favored them.
Right.
If they find that it could be flawed in either direction, I think they could rethink it.
Yeah, or if they even find that...
We can add it to the scrap metal sale that Ireland's having with theirs.
Exactly. It'll be a big blowout. Hey, you know...
Everything must go.
Yeah, we can...
Hell, we'll do it on President's Day along with the mattress sales.
There you go. That's a great idea. Well, we still have lots more show coming up, but we do have to run back to a break. Definitely a story you want to check out. It's over on Wonkette, and we'll post the link as well up on talkingleft.com with this blog post. Did Anonymous protect the election? And if so, what do we owe them? It's a question we should all be asking right now. So this is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Lots more stuff in store, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back on We Act Radio.
It reflects the drama of the human experience, and isn't that the essence of art?
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
My name is Joe Thompson. I'm 29 years old and have a career that I love as a systems analyst. Career. It still sounds cool to say that word. I never could have gotten on this path without a college degree. And if the college me were here, he'd tell you.
I never would have gotten to college without Big Brothers Big Sisters. I could have ended up anywhere, on the streets even. But college? Joe Thompson? Not likely. My big brother helped me out. He taught me I could do anything, at a time when a lot of people were saying just the opposite.
And to a 7-year-old, that means a lot. My big brother's name is Phil. And Phil is the reason that this 7-year-old grows up to be a systems analyst.
Whether you donate money or time, you're helping Big Brothers Big Sisters help a child. And that can last a lifetime. Start something today at bigbrothersbigsisters.org. Brought to you by Big Brothers Big Sisters and the Ad Council.
Breast health awareness is critical for all women, particularly African Americans, because we have an increased risk of dying from breast cancer compared to women of other backgrounds. At U of M, I'm doing research here and with women in Ghana to look for an inherited link that makes African and African American women susceptible to a more aggressive type of cancer. Finding this link, I believe, will make new treatments possible. But right now, making sure that you are properly screened is our best protection.
With experts like Dr. Lisa Newman, the University of Michigan Health System is a leader in cancer care. When you call our free Cancer Answer line at 800-865-1125, an oncology nurse will answer any questions you might have about the prevention, screening, and treatment of breast cancer and other forms of cancer. All calls are confidential. Call 800-865-1125 or visit uofmhealth.org/cancer answer line.
We're working to help everyone enjoy longer, healthier lives.
That's the Michigan difference.
Hey there, Matthew Filipovich here, host of the creatively titled Matthew Filipovich Show, which, by the way, you can hear every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio. Now, I'm going to be honest with you people. I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I like talking to smart people who are smarter than me, some of the smartest, funniest, most badass progressives out there. People like Glenn Greenwald, Naomi Klein, Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, Jamie Kilstein, Allison Kilkenny, Alan Grayson, Jeremy Scahill, Jim Hightower, and more. That's right, I said more. Don't believe me? Well, tune into the Matthew Filipovich Show every single Saturday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. for some of the best in liberal talk, news, comedy, and interviews right here on 1480 a.m. We Act Radio.
Friends, David Schuster here, and all of us at We Act Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
Everybody's dreaming big. But everybody's just getting by. That's how it goes. Everyday America.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Before the break, we were telling you about the possibility Anonymous, the well-known hacker group, protected the election from Karl Rove. I wonder if that's also the case in South Florida. Many people are aware that Alan West, the well-known single-term congressman down in Florida, crazier than all get out, is disputing the election results from November 4th, stating that he deserves a full recount. And hey, in the interest of being fair and open, perhaps he does. Perhaps he does deserve a recount. However, he's not within the legal margin that one is required. As of November 10th, Florida judges declined his request for a recount, stating that Patrick Murphy was the unofficial winner by 1,907 votes, which is beyond the margin for the full recount. However, St. Lucie County officials have since agreed to recount some votes despite the court ruling. The interesting part, however, is that they're only recounting early votes. Early votes that tend to be Democratic, minority, senior citizens, students. They're only recounting early votes, not absentee ballots or election day ballots, only early votes. I think that's very disturbing. If he's eligible for a recount, or even the county decides that he's deserving of one, then give him a full recount. But by only recounting a portion of the vote, couldn't you swing that election in whichever direction you saw fit? The recount as of Sunday of the 16,275 early votes changed totals by giving West an additional 132 votes, yet took away 667 from Patrick Murphy, acknowledging, or so-called acknowledging, that electronic voting machines had double counted some ballots. Could it be that maybe they're hacking, they're patching, they're trying to steal the election in Florida? Backfired on them as well? In the congressional race that was most expensive in the nation's history, at least $21 million spent on, this one Tea Party favorites race. All of a sudden, Patrick Murphy's lead drops from 1,907 to about 1,200 votes. I'm not certain, because the percentages are not given here, if that puts Allen West in to the 0.5% margin that requires a full recount. But if it does, I say we recount every one of those ballots by hand, not through an electronic voting machine, and we make sure that if any totals are off as far as the number of actual votes cast in that election, that somebody has a damn good explanation as to why. And if these voting machines supposedly counted those votes twice, I'd like to see some evidence of that as well. I would like whoever is the fair winner of that race, as much as I would love to be rid of Allen West, to be declared the winner. But not through illegal, fraudulent methods, and not through only recounting the portion of the votes that tend to favor Democrats. I think something smells awfully fishy there, and election officials need to be looking into it. So, with all that serious conversation aside, just want to give you a preview of who we're going to be talking to next. We're going to be speaking with Michael Hardiman, a.k.a. Rocky Mountain Mike, well known on the Stephanie Miller Show, Tom Hartman Show, so many other places where his amazing parodies are played. We're going to speak with him about all his fun stuff and compliment him on not only his amazing coverage of the election cycle, but thanking him for our amazing intro music as well. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we're going to have Rocky Mountain Mike coming up next. Stick around.
This really might be the best Thanksgiving ever.
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
One of the proudest progressive victories of the November elections was produced by some scrappy citizens in the burg of Brecksville, Ohio, population 14,000. Organized under the banner of Brecksville Citizens for Transparent Politics, they decided they needed to speak out about the U.S. Supreme Court's outrageous edict allowing unlimited sums of corporate cash to flood secretly into America's elections. So they collected signatures to qualify an initiative for the local ballot, calling for a U.S. constitutional amendment, quote, to establish that corporations are not people and money is not speech. A couple of states and dozens of cities proposed similar initiatives, but Brecksville's unique proposal added a useful bit of oomph to the call. If passed, it would require city officials to designate one day in February for the next 10 years as Democracy Day, on which the mayor would host a citywide hearing about how the surge of campaign money was affecting the city. After the hearing, the mayor must send a letter to the legislature and Congress proclaiming the citizens' opposition to corporate electioneering. Mayor Jerry Ruby, however, balked at this outbreak of democracy, saying it required the city to take an official position on a federal issue outside its jurisdiction. He went to the Board of Elections to disqualify it from the November ballot, but the board deadlocked, and the matter went to Ohio's Secretary of State. To the mayor's surprise, this Republican official broke the tie in favor of the citizens. Then, the mayor appealed to the Ohio Supreme Court, where, finally, with barely a month to go, a 5-2 majority of the judges ruled that the people's proposal was legit. This is Jim Hightower saying, completing this triumph of citizens' perseverance, 52% of Brecksvillians proudly voted the initiative into law on Election Day. See, it is possible to fight City Hall and win.
If you'd like more of Jim Hightower's real populism, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter gives you the real lowdown on which corporations, by name, are doing what to the middle class, our environment, and our democracy. Each month, the Hightower Lowdown brings you facts you didn't know, along with actions you can take to fight back. It also comes with a sense of humor. Hightower believes we can fight the gods and still have fun. Plus, get this, it's cheap. Only $15 brings you 12 issues a year. For real populism, go to hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Walmart warehouse workers on Wednesday filed unfair labor practice charges with the National Labor Relations Board against 4 employers: Schneider Logistics, RoadLink Workforce Solutions, Select Remedy, and Skyward Employment Service. The workers allege that the employers used illegal threats, intimidation, and discipline against workers organizing for improved working conditions. These employers hire workers to move Walmart merchandise in a warehouse in Elmwood, Illinois. At a Walmart-controlled warehouse in Mariloma, California, meanwhile, dozens of workers walked off their jobs Wednesday to call for an end to retaliation against workers fighting for fair treatment and safe conditions. 63 CEOs representing the largest U.S. corporations have launched a campaign calling for $134 billion in tax breaks. According to a report by the Institute for Policy Studies, the corporations want the U.S. to switch to a territorial corporate tax system, similar to a Mitt Romney proposal. The report says if that happens, these corporations could reap tax breaks of up to $134 billion. Under the guise of fixing the debt, these corporations want to exempt foreign earnings from U.S. taxation. The single biggest beneficiary, if this corporate tax system were adopted, would be General Electric, which has overseas earnings of roughly $102 billion. Actual U.S. corporate tax revenue has plunged despite a 60-year high in corporate profits. Labor and community activists in Chicago are protesting Mayor Rahm Emanuel's 2013 budget cuts. On Tuesday, hundreds of protesters staged a die-in, sprawling on the floor at the mayor's office to represent what they say will be the devastation the mayor's austerity budget will cause in Chicago neighborhoods. The activists say hundreds of good jobs will be lost and public safety and health will be threatened by the mayor's budget cuts. Several European Union member countries saw strike action on Wednesday as citizens protested governmental decisions to use austerity measures to reduce debt. The measures have led to hundreds of thousands of workers seeing their salaries, pensions, and benefits slashed. The strike was called by the European Trade Union Confederation, which has members in 36 countries. The world has already watched strike action unfold over the last 2 years in Spain, Greece, and Italy. But yesterday, those countries were joined by workers in France, Slovenia, the Czech Republic, and other nations. Most of the protests remained peaceful, but some protests in Spain and Italy did see riot police descending on protesters using rubber bullets and tear gas. Wednesday's strike was the second in Spain this year and nearly shut down the entire country with workers from many sectors participating. 74 people were injured during a clash with police in Madrid. You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
It takes 12 years to create a graduate. It takes about the same time to create a dropout. And at the end of the day, the difference between a child becoming one or the other could be you. So United Way is asking you to make a pledge. Tutor a child who needs help. Mentor a kid who needs someone on their side. Volunteer to read to children. Because when a child advances, we all advance. Be a reader, tutor or mentor. Give, advocate, volunteer, live united. Take the pledge now at liveunited.org. Brought to you by United Way and the Ad Council.
That's Mitt in the spotlight, losing his election, trying to keep Ohio too, and he knows now that he can't do it. Oh no, he spent too much and lied more than enough.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and that amazing parody you just heard is one of so many, but that one got, I'd say, at least 2,600 plays on your SoundCloud. Isn't that correct, Mike?
It did.
That
sounds fantastic.
Yes.
So great to hear the voice in person.
Yes.
Rocky Mountain Mike.
That's pretty amazing, and that's not that far off at how many your parodies get on any play. It's, I mean, thousands and thousands of hits on each one. For anybody who doesn't know, Rocky Mountain Mike Hardiman, of course, you can follow him at Twitter at Rocky Mountain, MNTN, Mike, as well as check out his SoundCloud. You can just Google SoundCloud Rocky Mountain Mike, and it comes right up. And your amazing photography site, which is really breathtaking, at michaelhardiman.com. Really, really amazing stuff. You're a man of many talents.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Good morning. It's good to be here.
We're very, very happy to have you. We have enjoyed your amazing work all election season, and I think some people don't realize that you have so many talents outside of just the realm of political parodies, and you're pretty damn good at those too.
I don't know about that, but I do appreciate that. I've been doing the photography for, this is the 20th anniversary of me doing serious landscape photography. And so that's the one I really, really put the most emphasis on, because it, unlike these parodies and stuff, it has a life beyond, just an election cycle or something like that.
Yeah, well, and your musical talents do as well. We've been celebrating
Can
you.
we clear up the record here for those who think that these are karaoke tracks that Mike sings?
Yes, why don't we do that?
Please.
Well, actually, they are.
What? What?
A lot of them are, because one of the big reasons that they are is because I just don't have time to lay down all the tracks. But that's only true of about 75% of them are. And then there are those where either I can't find the track or I'm not satisfied with whatever is available. And yeah, I will do a lot of things from scratch.
I remember years back, because you've been doing this longer than I. You did one, I think it was at Chipmunks, and I know that you go out and you buy the sheet music, play the parts, sing it. You have voices around the country who help you out from your bands and things like that. So that, I mean, it's amazing stuff what you do. And it's a great way to go through the election in a fun way and kind of recap the entire thing. And I have to say, Mike, one of my favorites that you did was Blacks, Whites, Latins.
Blacks and Whites Latins, yeah, to the tune of Knights in White Satin.
Absolutely amazing. I'm going to go ahead and play it here. And the entire thing, too. I think I have the right track, because I have different cuts because for our other job that we do during the week, Mike has been nice enough to let us use it as bumpers, and of course Stephanie plays the bits, and so it's getting a lot of airplay, which we're really glad about. But here, let me play this track.
Cold-hearted orb that rules the night. 50 Shades of Grey, and I'm so white. And I am an illusion. Blacks and whites, Latins, never voting for Mitt. Some demographics never gets 1%. Poopy has always spoke with his mouth before. Just what the truth is, Mitt can't speak anymore, and he's above you. Yes, Mitt's above you. Oh, he's above you. Talking with people, some shaking hands. Just what are humans for? Mitt can't quite understand. understand.
Because he's a Mitbot.
Some work at jobs and Mitt just can't comprehend just what he needs to say. Mitt will say just to win, and he's above you. Yes, Mitt's above you.
Or he thinks he is.
Oh, he's above you.
Great stuff. Rocky Mountain Mike, Michael Hardiman. I want to give a shout out to anybody who's listening over on We Act Radio who may not be. I know most people who visit us in the chat room are very familiar with where to find Mike's stuff. But again, just to mention it, his SoundCloud, which the links are up with every single blog post for this show. But SoundCloud, Rocky Mountain Mike.
No, actually, it's Mike and Raleigh.
Yes, but you can Google them.
Yeah.
It's very easy.
Yeah, actually, if you just Google Rocky Mountain Mike, the
Yep.
SoundCloud page is the first thing that comes up.
Yep. Because you were kind enough to produce and create such wonderful theme music for us, Mike, with every single blog post, with every single show since we started playing that awesome music, we include your links to all your SoundCloud, Twitter, photography site, everything with every single show, so people
I
can
did not know that. Thank
always
you so
find
much,
it there.
Danielle.
That's why he's getting 2,000 hits, right?
Yeah,
No.
absolutely. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Can we link to your stuff, Mike? Can we do that in reverse?
I'm so flattered. I'll have to give you guys some shouts.
Oh,
out.
No. We're just teasing. But
And I have to say that I love your Schecter character.
Yes.
And for those who went to the Sexy Liberal show in Columbus,
got to see it in person.
Got to see it in person. It was a riot. I watched the intro that you guys did.
Well, just to back up for anybody who's listening on We Act who might not know, how would you describe your Schecter character and how you came up with him, Mike?
Well, Schecter is just, he really is everybody that you run into that is just clueless and spouts off Fox talking points without really knowing what they're talking about. And I guess I got inspired for him by just looking at the comments section in Yahoo. And I'm from Tulsa, Oklahoma, so I used to be in the comments of Tulsa World, and people would. They just would. It's kind of like Ernest T. Bass on in the Andy Griffith Show, where he just kind of throws a rock through the window and runs away. He doesn't really know what he's saying, but he wants to make sure that everybody hears the Sean Hannity talking point of the day.
Yes, and you're the one most people I'm sure are familiar with, the one you did back at the beginning of the election season, if I can speak today. And my favorite part in it is always Big Hip Hop Barbecue. But you did a new one about, I don't know when you did this, but much closer to the end of the election season, if not after.
It was after, and it was, and correct me if I'm wrong, it had to do with, there's been a bunch of videos for LBGT teenagers, it gets better, and, encouraging people to, be themselves and knowing that in life things do get better. And Micah, you did one for Schecter, It Gets Better, yes?
Yeah, that was last week.
It's absolutely hilarious, and we wanted to make sure everybody got
Hip-hop
to hear
cell
it.
phones.
Yeah.
They all just want free stuff.
History turns the
Massive
page.
voter fraud,
But
Acorn,
I know,
Benghazi.
we all know a
They all
Schecter.
get free hip-hop iPhones.
Obama derangement syndrome reaches all segments of
Pizza's
society.
going to be 25 cents
Rich
more.
and poor, young and old, anyone can be a
He
Schecter.
watched live video of Nicki Minaj and Mariah Carey. Didn't do anything to stop it.
Sufferers of Obama derangement syndrome
Kenyan.
only have to remember 3 words.
Socialist.
Schecter. Schecter.
It gets better.
For those unable to distinguish between fantasy and reality, it gets better.
Can I get back on the Yahoo comments now?
Please do your part by giving at your local Schecter kiosk.
Monkey is not a racist term.
Help Schecter.
War against coal.
Help Bubba.
Obama has a Marxist dog.
Help Karl Rove.
Elections have a liberal bias.
A delusional mind is a terrible thing to waste.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Now,
Yes.
I did write that music is all mine on that one.
Well, see?
Cool.
as I said, man of amazing talents.
Now, Mike, you have a new show, correct?
Well, I don't have a steady show. I'm just doing fill-ins up here. There's a town called Minturn, which is directly adjacent to Vail up here. And it's really just kind of a hippie town. It's a beautiful little old mining town. And there's a community radio station there called Radio Free Minturn. And I'm on the board of directors there, and I'm trying to help them with their website and do some planning events and things like that. And I have done a couple of fill-in shifts. I'll be doing one tonight from 8 to 10 Mountain Time.
Cool.
But I'm not really, the thing is I sort of have to wait until something becomes available that's palatable with my regular schedule. And so I've just elected not to really worry about getting in there. And this is typical of me. I'm always volunteering my time when I don't really have it. So I'm trying to avoid that. So I'm very non-committal at this point, but I'll just be sitting in once in a while for different people.
Oh, so tonight at 10 p.m. Eastern. And now, where can we find that? Because I'm going to be listening.
Yeah.
It's Minturn, MINTURN radio.org.
Very cool.
And they have limited bandwidth online because they don't want to pay too much for royalties. They actually shut out anybody after the first so many online listeners. So it could be possible you can't get on. So it's a very small station. It's kind of like, it's really weird. It's right there on the main street. There are literally moose walking down the main street. So it's just like Northern Exposure.
It's Moose Radio.
Yeah.
Hey, even though that's a small station, I'm sure that means they can grow into more bandwidth, more listeners when and if they desire. And it also kind of gives a feeling of exclusivity, where it's something special for that small area that, is personal and people probably feel a part of it.
That's definitely it. I mean, we obviously have a lot of skiers and snowboarders and sort of, hippies and stuff here, and that's the town for them. But it actually is, the local paper, the Vail Daily, did an informal survey, and Radio Free Minturn came in number 2 in the market. And there's probably a good 5 or so stations you can listen to here. Vail is an amazingly sophisticated radio market. That was a nice surprise when I came here. And some of the people that are on that station play some amazingly sophisticated music. It very much is like listening to Chris in the morning because they're not just schlocking out crap. It's well thought out music that goes on that station.
Very cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you have, Mike? Do you have a favorite parody from this election season?
Oh, I liked the Dickie Goodman send-offs I did for the New Hampshire primary. That was fun. It's really hard to pick. I suppose really my absolute favorite would either be the Rich Dushian candidate or Mitt Romney Vampire Hunter. Those were both, movie trailers and not song parodies. But, we put a lot into those for sure. I'd actually have to see the list because I can't remember them all.
You're a bit prolific in that you probably can't remember half of the ones you've done. Do you have any idea, like a ballpark, maybe?
Well, on the SoundCloud page, there's about 220 out there.
Wow.
And that's over the course of about the last 18 months, I guess. Oh, I would say when you say Mitt, yeah. Yeah, because we recreated the old Budweiser jingle from the 70s, and that was really fun. I always like it when I have to basically recreate an entire orchestra. and Mary in Ann Arbor, bless her heart, she's just a great singer, did the lead singing on that one, and I was really happy with the response, with the results of that one.
Well,
a lot of times my personal favorites are not the ones that get the most hits, but oh well.
Well, this one is a huge number, so we're going to play When You Say Mitt.
And as we go to a quick break, we're going to play that instead of a commercial. And Mike, we've been under the impression you can stick around for one more short segment.
Is that cool?
Sure. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll play a bit or two, and we'll be right back here on Talking Left with more Rocky Mountain Mike. Don't go anywhere. This is Danielle and Shano, Rocky Mountain Mike.
When you say Mitt, You've picked the one who'll say whatever he must say. When you say mitt, you've chose the man who is the absolute flip-floppiest. When you say mitt, you've said the word that means you have no spine at all. When you say mitt, it means you want the man who's got no plan, just wants a win. When you say mitt, you pick the one who knows when he has seen pancakes. When you say mitt, you tell the world you'll use your vote to help the very rich. There is no sympathy, Mitt really can't care less, because the 1% is screwing all the rest. When you say douche nozzle, you've said it all.
Hi, friends. This is Tom Hartman.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks. I'm Brad Friedman. I approve of Nicole Sandler's RadioOrNot.com.
Radio or not?
Radio or not? RadioOrNot.com.
RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com. RadioOrNot.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Bill Maher, you're here in Miami on Friday night. You're doing a show at the Fillmore at the Jackie Gleason Theater. They just renamed this theater the Fillmore. And they put up a couple of psychedelic posters. So I guess...
Was it the theater Jackie did his TV show from?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
What I hear they did is put up two of those old Bill Graham posters and renamed it.
Yeah, I can't think of two different icons of show business.
Yeah, really.
Bill Graham and Jackie Gleason.
Yeah, why they just didn't play up the Jackie Gleason aspect, I don't know. But then again, this is South Florida.
Right. Okay.
Welcome to it.
I feel warned.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime at RadioOrNot.com.
Hi, this is Kenny Pick from Turn Up the Night. Here are some of the hijinks you can expect from my show.
That right-wing Republican from Texas was only helping Dennis because he thought Dennis would be easier for Joe the plumber to beat than
Well,
Ken.
yeah, I mean, seriously, a pet rock would have been better candidate than Joe the plumber. I think he might actually have been a pet rock before he was a non-plumber. So, but he was a union pet rock, never mind. Turn Up the Night with Kenny Pick, streaming live every Tuesday and Friday from 7 to 10 p.m. Eastern at Radio or Not, Talk Radio 1, Progressive Blend Radio, and KennyPick.com.
You know that the ice cream scoop has the power to make a child smile, and that by slowing us down, the traffic light can keep us going. You know that the golf tee brings friends together, that the mailbox keeps them connected. You know that the cataract laser helps you look to the future, while the pacemaker ensures that there's a future to be seen. You know that the lawnmower, the clothes dryer, and the elevator make life easier, that the blood bank makes life possible. You know that these things we count on every day started as ideas. But did you know all these ideas came from the minds of African Americans? Support minority education today so we don't miss out on the next big idea tomorrow. The United Negro College Fund, a mind is a terrible thing to waste. Please visit uncf.org or call 1-800-332-UNCF. Brought to you by UNCF and the Ad Council.
The most important online radio station.
It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
Well, Nick's working real hard and he's trying to get this job, but he just keeps getting
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and our amazingly talented guest, Michael Hardiman of Rocky Mountain Mike on SoundCloud, michaelhardiman.com, and Rocky Mountain, MNTN, Mike on Twitter. Another amazing song there by you, Mike. How do you think of all of these great parodies to do?
Well, sometimes I actually start stockpiling the songs before I can think of an idea. I just like, it'd be great to do one with Steve Miller, and so I'll just kind of stash the song away and sort of wait for something to come along that fits it. So a lot of times it's that way. A lot of times I'll just take whatever the headline is or the subject is, the title, and I'll start playing with the words and start changing out the consonants, to kind of going through the alphabet. Well, what if I take this word and change this to a B and then a C? And I'll go through the entire alphabet, and I'll stumble across a word like, oh, wait a minute, that's in this song. And sometimes it works that way,
And you write all the lyrics pretty much yourself and have some amazing partners, women who do the women's voices on all these songs. Are those people
Right.
you knew from your band, which is just another one of your many talents, or
Some of them are, but like Audra in Minneapolis, Mary in Ann Arbor was at the Dayton show. I mean, the Columbus show. And, of course, we all knew Audra in Minneapolis. She's fantastic. And Audra and I got together through the Stephanie Miller chat room because I was just said, hey, I could use a female on this. And so we started working as a result of that. And then I have two women in Raleigh that were each in my band before. I have another person in New York who hasn't actually done anything with me yet, but she's very promising and a great vocalist.
Just binders and binders of female.
I have binders of women, that's for the singing, right? I actually need more men that can sing. I don't have a single male vocalist really out there who can help me. And then on the dramatic side of things, we have Kenny Pick and Deba and you guys have done some stuff with me before. And
we're not
as
very
well
trainable, though. That's the problem with us.
Yeah.
and Tom Schaefer, and I don't know. There's probably in total, there's probably about 15 people that are working with me on this stuff, and I am forever in their debt because I absolutely could not do any of this without her. Mary in Ann Arbor is actually working with me right now. We actually exchanged emails during the break. She and I are working on a bit for tomorrow's Stephanie Miller show.
Oh, well, I'm excited, and we'll definitely be listening to it. That was going to be my next question, which may be all we have time for, is with the election over, many comedians I know are saddened by the fact that we may have lost Mitt Romney to the political arena. Do you think you're going to have any shortage of new bits to write and new comedy to come up with?
I really honestly thought I was. I really thought I was going to go into semi-retirement here, but then the Petraeus thing came along, and all the sour grapes from the election has provided a lot of good humor. So you never know. You never know what's going to happen that's going to just pop out of the blue. This thing I'm doing with Mary is kind of sort of based on the Petraeus thing, but it's really all about the Stephanie Miller show. And again, it was an idea I had a couple of months ago, just associated with the show, but then the Petraeus thing gave it like an extra twist.
I am intrigued. I cannot wait to hear it.
Yeah. Another layer to the Petraeus scandal, because that triangle's got so many sides, it's starting to become a pentagram.
It actually makes it hard because it's got so much to it. You can't squeeze it all into a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Mike Hardiman, Rocky Mountain Mike, thank you so much for joining us. And seriously, the hugest thanks for our amazing intro music. Your links to all of your stuff are up with every single show and will continue to be. And if you could send us a graphic or something to use, we'd also put you right on the front page of our site if you would like.
Okay, thanks. Thanks very much, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks so much for all you do, and we'll be looking forward to hearing the next amazing, brilliant piece you come up with.
Have a great day.
Bye-bye. Rocky Mountain Mike Hardiman. You can check out all his amazing, seriously beautiful photography at michaelhardiman.com. And just Google Rocky Mountain Mike, and you'll find his SoundCloud to his pages and pages and pages of amazing, hilarious parodies and more. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We'll be right back, and we'll come into that amazing intro music that Mike Hardiman designed for us. So don't go anywhere. Stick around. This is Talking Left on We Act Radio.
It's Thursday, November 15, 2012.
Justice in the Gulf?
BP has agreed to plead guilty to all 14 criminal charges.
BP to pay record fines for largest oil spill in nation's history. California launches landmark cap-and-trade system. October 2012, the second hottest October on record. Plus,
climate change is real, that it is impacted by human behavior and carbon emissions. And as a consequence, I think we've got an obligation to future generations to do something about it.
the Superstorm Sandy effect. Obama says it's time to tackle climate change. Sort of.
All of that and more straight ahead. From BradBlog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
The reason why you had BP being such a problem, Adam, is because it was so far offshore. And the reason why it was so far offshore is because of environmental reasons.
And also because that's where the oil is. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, a very, very big news day today. Finally, some good-ish news out of the Gulf.
Yep, some accountability. Oil giant BP will pay a record fine and plead guilty to unprecedented felony criminal charges for the disastrous 2010 Gulf of Mexico oil spill, the worst in the nation's history. The $4.5 billion settlement includes a record $1.3 billion fine, $3 billion in penalties and other payments to federal agencies, and 14 criminal charges that include 11 felony manslaughter counts for the deaths of 11 crew members, and 3 high-ranking BP supervisors have been indicted on felony manslaughter and obstruction of justice charges. U.S. Attorney General Eric Holder, in a press conference on Thursday, called it unprecedented.
BP has agreed to plead guilty to all 14 criminal charges, including responsibility for the deaths of 11 people and the events that led to an unprecedented environmental catastrophe.
So the company has agreed to plead guilty to 11 charges of manslaughter. Who is going to jail on behalf of the company for that manslaughter?
No one. The company does not go to jail, but it is possible those 3 supervisors could go to jail after trial.
So that whole thing about corporations being people, pretty much not true?
That's right. Today's settlement is for criminal penalties for the company. It does not include the $20 billion compensation fund BP set up after the spill, additional civil and private claims from Gulf states and businesses, or federal civil fines for violations of the Clean Water Act, which could go as high as $21 billion and will be determined in a New Orleans court next February. There's much more on this complex settlement and what's next at our website, greennews.bradblog.com.
That $4.5 billion agreement from BP, does that cut into their bottom line much?
No, actually, it's less than the $5.5 billion in profit BP made over the last 3 months.
I guess 11 counts of manslaughter was worth it.
Also notable, on Wednesday, in his first press conference since re-election, President Obama acknowledged the devastation caused by Superstorm Sandy. He also said the trend toward increasing extreme weather events means that he will take some kind of action on climate change.
You can expect that you'll hear more from me in the coming months and years about how we can shape an agenda that garners bipartisan support and helps moves this agenda forward. This one's hard. But it's important. Based on the evidence we're seeing is that what we do now is going to have an impact and a cost down the road if we don't do something about it.
And how are environmentalists reacting to those remarks at his press conference?
It's pretty mixed. Some outlets criticize him for being less than vague, putting climate change way down the list behind tax negotiations, the economy, and job growth. A new poll shows, though, that now even more Americans are making the climate change connection with extreme weather. Right-leaning pollster Rasmussen released the results of a poll taken prior to the election showing that 68% of American voters believe global warming is either a very serious or a somewhat serious problem. In the meantime, NASA says October 2012 was the second warmest October for the planet. But the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration says it was only the fifth warmest on record. That's due to their different data sets. Both, however, agree that 2012 is on track to be the hottest year in history. Finally, California officially launched its landmark cap-and-trade emissions market on Wednesday with the auction of the first-ever carbon permits for greenhouse gas emissions by polluters in the state as part of its landmark global warming law signed by Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger in 2006. Revenue will go into a greenhouse gas reduction account with funds to be used to promote clean energy and energy efficiency retrofits.
Blue California has a red governor sign a green bill. I'll take it. For more on all of the stories we covered today, please check out our website at greennews.bradblog.com. While you're there, please consider a donation to help sponsor the Green News Report. We rely on you to stay on your public airwaves. Also, remember, you can download us anytime via iTunes, listen to us on your mobile device via Stitcher Radio, find us and like us on the Facebook, and follow us 24/7 on the Twitters at Green News Report. From bradblog.com, I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
And this has been your Green News Report.
California, I've been blue since I've been away from you. I can't wait till I get going. Even now, I'm starting in a color. California, here I come, right back where I started from, where bowers of flowers bloom in the spring. Each morning at dawning.
This is Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Thank you wherever you are listening, whether it be radioornot.com, our Ustream where you're chatting along with us, talkingleft.com, SoFloRadio.com, SoFloRadio.net, Progressive Blends, or of course We Act Radio, 1480 AM WPWC in Washington, D.C. We appreciate it wherever you are checking us out, and please remember you can always download the podcast for free or watch the YouTube of the show for free. You can get all those links at talkingleft.com. Check it out on Facebook and Twitter at Talking Left. So, Shane, we were just talking with Mike Hardiman, Rocky Mountain Mike, who does an amazing character he calls Schecter.
Hip-hop iPhones.
Hip-hop iPhones. The old one was hip-hop. He had a big hip-hop barbecue. You have to check out the SoundCloud history to know put that in context, but it is hilarious. And I think we all have that relative.
Or a lot of them.
Yes, or a lot of them. And those who don't, consider yourselves lucky. But we all have that Schecter relative, or friend, that person who refuses to believe facts and simply repeats Fox and Sean Hannity's talking points. And many of us will have to visit with that relative or friend coming up this Thanksgiving.
Yes. A lot of times they're not even talking points, as Mike so adeptly points out. They're just like talking syllables.
Yes, like hip-hop barbecue.
Yeah. Kenyan president.
Yeah. Libya. Benghazi.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we wanted to help you go through some of the right-wing talking points you're likely to hear this Thanksgiving and give you a few friendly ways of debunking those myths.
After they've shown you their whole new stockpiled arsenal. Since
Yes. Yes. So I think the biggest one we're going to hear this Thanksgiving is about Benghazi. I think that's going to be the biggest point around the Thanksgiving dinner table. Do you agree, Shane?
Possibly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Most likely.
That it would have been, why didn't Obama call it an act of terror, which those Fox viewers who aren't up on their newest set of talking points may still repeat that one, to which we can easily state he did. He said it in the Rose Garden the very next day. And in fact, in the presidential debates, Candy Crowley pointed this out to Mitt Romney And even Fox had to come out and admit that the president did, in fact, call it an act of terror. So that's
they
one
did that for
down.
like 5 minutes and then went on to chastise Candy Crowley. For a few
Yes, so that's one down. The next will be that Obama claimed and Susan Rice claimed it was all the result of this Islamophobic video. Wouldn't you agree? That's the next terrorist. That's the next talking point.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's I'm using logic here, which...
Yeah, you're thinking linearly and, like through, point, and counterpoint, point, counterpoint.
Yes.
Usually it's more of like a multi-pronged assault from, multiple fictional, areas of disbelief or,
Yes, but it is very likely we will hear the talking point that Susan Rice and President Obama refused to admit that this was a terrorist attack and that it was all the result, they stated it was all the result of this Islamophobic video. However, the response to that is that they just recently had the intelligence hearing in which Republicans, including Senator John McCain and who is it, Lindsey Graham or Haley Barbour?
Lindsey Graham.
I always get those two confused.
The one with a lisp.
Yeah. Both of them had to basically shut up about Benghazi and admit that the CIA and other intelligence officials released those talking points, and that's what Susan Rice used. That's what the president used. Those were the unclassified talking points, meaning there was more information, but it's classified, you dopes.
But
to which
now the conspiracy theory is that they
removed the words.
They specifically classified those words for political purposes and therefore misled the public and should be impeached.
Yes.
There it is.
It takes a lot of hot air to say that.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I think we just dose him with a bunch of L-tryptophan and watch some football.
Eat more turkey.
It's going to be the Battle of the Bulge.
Yes. So essentially at that point, you can roll your eyes and laugh and pass them the gravy. But there are some other straight up, just ridiculously overused Republican talking points that like to raise their ugly little heads every holiday season.
Oh, I'm interested to hear these.
Yes. Like, the rich are job creators.
Oh, that good old favorite.
Yes. Where are we? Where's my show prep here? The wealthy are job creators is one of their favorite terms. That however, middle class entrepreneurs account for most of the jobs created in our economy, and that the rich still only count for 2 to 3% of quote unquote small business. So, I mean, although I guess they don't deal with math, so that's a tough one.
Yeah, it's just going to be hard for me not to say, nah.
That's always an option.
Yeah, because I do remember the one email I did write back this season. We actually covered it on the show.
Yes.
Bleep Mr. G sends me.
Yes.
And it was about how the Republicans are going to win in a landslide because Dick Morris said so.
Yes. Oh.
I may get a turkey leg thrown at me for pointing out the email I wrote back.
Oh, that was priceless. Of all people to, and it wasn't just that because Dick Morris said so, it was because Democratic strategist Dick Morris said so, which is...
So I wrote back a nice long email explaining who Dick Morris was, how he's never been right, and if Dick Morris says it, it will be the opposite, and sure enough.
Oh, it couldn't have been more true.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, to be a fly on the wall in those rooms when Obama won the election. Let's see, what else did we have here? I have so many... There's so many new right-wing myths. There's just pages and pages of them. In fact...
The thing is though, when you get right down to it, that probably it's better for digestion to not even bring it up this year.
Are we usually the ones that bring it up?
I think I might this year.
Just to say, na 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 na.
We often name our turkey. Maybe we'll name it Dick Morris.
Oh, that would be a great idea.
That'll get the conversation rolling.
Yeah, I think that might be a conversation starter.
Or dinner ender.
Yes, but
more
those
mashed
of
potatoes
us
for me.
Those of us sick of, as Shane has termed it, the battle of the bulge, and having to debate your right-wing family members either over the dinner table or via email throughout the year. Well, there's an app for that.
No, is there really?
There is now an app for that. It is a Google Chrome add-on that scans your emails.
Oh, I don't like the sound of that, though.
Well,
You have to tell it to?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a plug-in for Chrome called Lazy Truth, which is awesome just because it's Lazy Truth. I just love the name of it. That yes, I'm lazy, but I would still like to debunk my crazy conservative friend's email. It automatically scans the email for information on factcheck.org and PolitiFact, and if it's information that is deemed false, it simply corrects a word or two, shows you where it's corrected, and gives you a link to the information so that you can automatically get the information on what is incorrect in the email and reply to those of us who
Does
have
it do like a strikeout, like Microsoft Word? Like,
yeah, the line through
it and then put the
yes. Future plans for Lazy Truth
I hope
include
they get in with Snopes.
yeah. They're not working with Snopes yet, but they are included in future plans. Future plans for Lazy Truth include ready-made, polite rebuttals that will refrain from attacking the quote-unquote claptrap purveyors personally, but will give them a gentle, will gently bust their myths and save you from sighing a lot and looking up PolitiFact, Fact Check, and Snopes in another tab.
And without saying, you idiot.
Yes, but so the work has been done for you. I'm wondering if, you can, those of us with a smartphone can bring this with you to the Thanksgiving dinner table and just email yourself their Republican lie.
Now all we have to do is put that together with Shazam, and then
that's awesome.
And put it on one of the Hannity's or Limbaugh's show and have it correct them.
Yes.
I don't think there's processors fast enough though.
Yeah, they would overload the system
to weed through that.
Yeah. So we had an idea, and I'm trying to remember about getting everybody to. We'll have to think of it during the break. But we had an idea about Thanksgiving and the new talking point. Having everybody tweet out the new talking point they heard at dinner.
We want to make a hashtag?
Yes. Thanksgiving Day Conservatives.
That's too long.
Turkey Day Truth.
That's good, or Turkey Day Turkeys.
There you go. So anyhow,
come up with one. That would be fun.
Yes, we'll have to think about that, and perhaps somebody in the chat room has an idea for a hashtag we can use to share our lovely conservative talking points that we hear at the Thanksgiving dinner table, and perhaps we'll help each other form responses and rebuttals to that. But anyhow, we are going to run to a break. We have Desi Doyen of the Green News Report coming up here in just a few minutes to talk about the BP settlement, the new explosion in the Gulf, and much more. So don't go anywhere. This is Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano, and we'll be right back here on We Act Radio.
Oh no! It's Thanksgiving again!
It's Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
It's our last errand today, Jimmy. Just need to pick up some light bulbs.
Whoa, there's so many. Did Grandma tell you which ones to buy?
No, but check out the label on this package. It'll help us find the right bulbs.
Does it really matter?
Well, sure. The new light bulbs use a lot less energy, so we save money on our electric bill by using an energy-saving incandescent, CFL, or LED.
How about this bulb?
Let's see. We need to replace the 60-watt bulbs in our bedside lamps. That one is 800 lumens, so it should do the trick.
I've never heard of lumens.
Lumens tell us how bright the light is. The more lumens, the brighter the bulb.
You know, Grandpa, you're a pretty bright guy.
Yeah, you're pretty smart yourself, Jimmy.
Lumens, the new way to shop for light. Learn more at EnergySavers.gov. That's EnergySavers.gov. A message from the U.S. Department of Energy.
You may be hearing about people having trouble making mortgage payments and risking losing their homes. Many of them just aren't aware of the options that can prevent foreclosure. There are many options available to homeowners, such as repayment and forbearance plans, loan modifications, and even refinancing. Where does someone go for help? They should talk directly with their lender or a qualified HUD-approved counseling agency. Both can provide helpful information without charging a fee. According to PMI Mortgage Insurance Company, it's not a good idea to pay for services that you can get for free from a lender or a qualified nonprofit counseling agency. To learn more, visit homesafepmi.com or call HUD at 1-800-569-4287 for a counseling agency near you. That's 1-800-569-4287. This message is brought to you by PMI, supporting sustainable home ownership that strengthens communities.
Friends, David Schecter here, and all of us at WEAC Radio are so proud of our neighbors here in Southeast D.C., especially one of our partners, the Ark. The Ark is at 1901 Mississippi Avenue Southeast. It's the home to some of Washington's best, including the Washington Ballet, the Levine School of Music, Boys and Girls Club, and the Children's Health Project. All provide a number of programs and services within the very same facility. The Ark is also home to the Ark Theater, the only theater east of the river, which hosts a variety of dance, music, and theatrical shows each year. Almost everything you could want is at the Ark, so stop by and see them. The Ark, 1901 Mississippi Avenue in Southeast. For more information, visit the Ark's website, www.thearkdc.org, or call 202-889-5901. The Ark, part of Southeast D.C.
This is Stephanie Miller.
Hi, this is Tom Hartman.
Hello, everybody. I'm David Schecter of Take Action News.
I'm Brad Friedman of BradBlog.com.
Hi, I'm cartoonist and agent provocateur P.S. Mueller.
This is Nicole Bell of crooksandliars.com, and this is...
You're listening to
and watching
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio.
Filter Free Radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean.
With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Great presidents aren't born, they are made. We've got to push people. They don't jump out in front of a parade if there's not a parade there. That is political suicide. The parade, metaphorically, already has to be in the streets with the picket signs saying, we need progressive talk in Portland, or we need marriage equality in Washington, or we need marijuana legalization in Colorado, you know, whatever.
Trans-Canada Pipeline.
Stop
the pipeline.
We have to push for our positions because they're not just going to out of thin air.
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. We are going to be speaking with Desi Doyen, the voice, the co-creator, the writer, the editor of the Green News Report, available on Brad Blog, as well as the Stitcher Radio app. She does amazing coverage about green energy news and environmental news going on throughout the country and the world. One point I'm really looking forward to talking to her about, in addition to the BP settlement and the new oil platform explosion in the Gulf, is that the New York Times is reporting that the U.S. will actually overtake Saudi Arabia as the world's leading oil producer by about 2017. So as we're dealing with catastrophic events and additional explosions, loss of life because of oil production, we are on track to actually be the world's largest oil producer. Essentially, in about 2 decades, they estimate that the U.S. will be all but self-sufficient in meeting its own energy needs, but that any oil we no longer need because of increased energy standards and changes to renewable energy sources would essentially just be rerouted to China and India and countries that are continuing to develop and thus using more and more oil.
So we become the waste pit.
Right.
essentially. And as it is right now, our number one export is gasoline.
Right. So, as you know, pollution continues to rise, as jobs lay by the wayside that we could be filling with green energy infrastructure. Instead, we are going to continue to drill and drill and drill and bust holes into the floor of the Gulf of Mexico and other areas throughout the country. This is also partly due to the increase in natural gas production going on throughout the country and the shift of many of our energy plants using natural gas instead of coal or crude oil. But yes, they estimate that in several years, electricity prices will be about 50% cheaper in the United States than in Europe. However, they don't think that this will have much of an effect on actual gas prices, oil prices, because oil will still be priced by the world market. So we can drill our way into quote-unquote self-sufficiency, as Sarah Palin and all the Republicans want, and apparently plenty of those on the so-called left are going right along with it. But it's not going to put any money back in anybody's pocket. It's surely not going to help the environment. And we can't say we're using it for some reserve or some stockpile to help us, be self-sufficient in the future, because it's just going to the world market and it's going to be sucked up by China and India and other developing, nations as they get further and further along in their development. Essentially, it's a pretty sobering message for the planet and for climate change. And I have a feeling that we're going to see a lot more incidents like this most recent explosion in the Gulf, and perhaps another disaster on the level of the BP Gulf oil disaster. We should be really pushing our representatives to start investing in more green energy, more solar plants and wind farms and whatever the case may be, for not just for our energy sources, not just to curb pollution, but for American jobs, for jobs that can't be outsourced, or, that people could get good working living wages on.
It just seems when you read two sets of news stories, you read a set of news stories that says this is the second hottest October.
Right.
Could be the hottest on the planet November. And then you have the story right next to it that we're going to produce a whole bunch more of this stuff that makes it hotter. It just seems like there's this disconnect between those two sets of articles in terms of what's going on, that one is causing the other. This is what scientists say. Yet, the article about being the biggest oil producer, it's almost like there was applause for it.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.
Not only that, but those who reported on it tended to applaud it, and many others didn't even see it in the news media because they're so caught up with this stupid Benghazi, Petraeus, Paula-gate nonsense. And, here's something that will affect this country and the world for generations to come, and, oh, no big deal. It's
However
fine.
many generations there might be.
Exactly. So we're going to get Desi Doyen on to talk to us about that, about the BP settlement. Is it enough? Is any amount enough? She's going to give us her opinion and much more in just a few minutes right here on Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on We Act Radio.
Hey, this is Hal Sparks from the Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide, and you're listening to Talking Left with Danielle and Shano.
Hoo boy, the startling revelation that American Airlines has had some of its passenger seats come loose during flights gives new meaning to the phrase, flying by the seat of your pants. But that's what the top bosses of this once proud airline have been doing for months as they continue to downsize its skilled workforce, outsource essential jobs, and generally demoralize the people who make an airline successful. Having plunged the corporation into bankruptcy last year, the geniuses in America's executive suite decided that the way to fix the airline's financial mess and restore public confidence in its service was to force more cuts on the employees who provide the services. Thus, in February, it was decreed that maintenance crews in Fort Worth and Tulsa would be slashed and more than a third of their jobs would be outsourced. Tom Horton, American's genius-in-chief, blithely declared that airplanes, quote, can be maintained in Asia or Latin America, anywhere. True, but not necessarily well maintained. In September, when the seats started coming loose, the brass callously drove company morale further down by implying that Americans' maintenance crews, who are members of the Transport Workers Union, were the culprits. But TWU fired right back, pointing out that maintenance of 2 lines of 757s, including seats, had been outsourced to a non-union, low-wage corporation where employees don't get expert union training or regular on-site reviews by federal safety inspectors. This is Jim Hightower saying, as a frequent flyer on American, I have a personal interest in this fight. I want CEO Horton to come to his senses and recognize that he can't climb out of bankruptcy by stepping on the line employees he has to count on to make the flying experience pleasant and safe. Cut the corporate hierarchy, Mr. Horton, not the people we customers actually trust to deliver a good product.
If you like these feisty pops of populism that Hightower zings out on the airwaves, check out the Hightower Lowdown. Jim's monthly newsletter provides the in-depth lowdown on what the greed heads of Wall Street and the boneheads of Washington are doing to us behind the scenes. With Hightower's saucy Texas humor and truth-telling populist perspective, the lowdown literally can lift you up. And get this, you can have the lowdown delivered to your mailbox or email each month for only $15 a year. Yes, 12 issues, only $15. Check it out, hightowerlowdown.org.
You're listening to WIN, Workers Independent News, a production of Diversified Media Enterprises. I'm Doug Cunningham. Hundreds of low-wage food and retail workers in Chicago Thursday launched a new union called the Workers' Organizing Committee of Chicago as they rallied to push for a $15 an hour wage and a union contract. 200 worker leaders from 100 stores held the founding convention for the new union and then rallied and marched through Chicago's Magnificent Mile. Satoria Briggs spoke with Workers Independent News via cell phone from the rally in Chicago.
I mean, I just feel like it's time for, the 99% to stand up. It's time that we stop sitting there and, just accepting what is thrown in our laps. Because at the end of the day, we're the ones working the long hours, tired, beat, hungry. And, it's a shame that I can work a week pay, work for a week, and I can't even make it to the next week. We have a worker here who's worked 26 years at McDonald's and still makes $8.25 an hour.
The workers say their fight for 15 hopefully will bring more scrutiny to the impact low-wage jobs have on families and communities nationwide. Wages are now so low for millions of workers around the U.S. that they are below the poverty line. A recent report written by the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign's Dr. Mark Dussard says 31.2% of workers aged 18 to 64 in Chicago are working in low-wage jobs. The Teamsters Union is recommending a secret ballot vote for members of the Bakery, Confectionery, Tobacco, and Grain Millers International Union at Hostess. The Teamsters say workers should be asked in the secret ballot vote whether they want to continue their strike and possibly force Hostess into liquidation. Hostess Brands said Wednesday that if it can't resume normal operations, it would have to begin a liquidation process. The Teamsters say it's not an empty threat or negotiating tactic, but a certain outcome if the BCTGM continues its strike. The Teamsters say they're trying to find a solution to preserve jobs. They say they're by and large respecting the striking union's picket lines when they encounter them. The Teamsters say that strike, though, now is on the verge of forcing the company to liquidate. U.S. employers cut back on vacation days in 2012. Jesse Russell reports.
Employers are being less generous when it comes to vacation days in the United States. According to Expedia's vacation deprivation study, it was found that on average, U.S. workers were being offered 12 days of vacation in 2012 instead of the average 14 days in 2011. However, U.S. workers are also less likely to use all of their vacation time, with most only taking 10 days and sacrificing 2 as the year turns over to 2013. The United States is one of the few countries on the planet that doesn't require employers to provide minimum employment leave. On average, most countries give workers roughly 20 days off for vacation. Germany, France, Spain, and Brazil are the most generous, requiring that 30 or more days should be provided to workers.
You've been listening to WIN, Workers Independent News. For more information, visit laborradio.org.
When I have an asthma attack, I feel scared. It's kind of like an elephant is on my chest. I feel like I'm choking. Sometimes my parents have to take me to the hospital.
You know how to react to their asthma attacks. Here's how to prevent them. Call 1-866-NO-ATTACKS. Visit www.noattacks.org or call your doctor, because even one attack is one too many.
I feel like a fish with no water.
Brought to you by the EPA and the Ad Council.
Welcome back to Talking Left with me, Danielle and Shano. And hopefully, if I have done something right here, we have Desi Doyen of the Green News Report as well. Desi, do we have you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you very well.
Yay, success. It worked.
And I'm sorry about miscalculating the time difference there.
That is quite all right. It happens.
Or maybe it was my sneaky attempt to try and get you on, telling you it was an hour later than it really was.
Well, here we are in West Coast time. It does, it's okay, though. It's a beautiful morning, and it's just finally stopped raining. So
good.
We've had, in L.A., it doesn't rain until about November, so we've had 6 months pretty much without it much rain. So now we've had some. It's nice.
Yeah.
You start to miss it.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I do know what you mean coming from a tropical type area like Florida.
Where it rains a lot.
Yes, but you do start to miss it.
Yes, that's true.
So the big news this week was the BP settlement, the $4.5 billion.
Yes.
I really was interested in your thoughts on this. Is $4.5 billion enough for the damages and future damages the BP disaster has caused, will cause?
Well, first we should point out that it's not the end of the litigation or the end of the fines and payments for BP. This $4.5 billion settlement that was announced on Thursday is really just the initial phase, with the U.S. government settling the criminal charges with BP. This would be the federal criminal charges. BP pled guilty to 14 counts, 14 felony counts, 11 counts of felony manslaughter for the 11 crew members who died on the rig in that explosion, and then also federal obstruction of justice as well for lying to Congress when they talked about the flow rate, which they, initially it looks like they purposely and intentionally made the flow rate sound much lower than it was. As you remember, there was a great deal of controversy at the time as the federal government was saying, you guys are the only ones that are down there with your remote-operated vehicles. You need to tell us what's going on. And there was quite a bit of controversy between the federal government, the media, and the BP execs about how much flow rate was going on. And, there's more that's actually to come beyond this $4.5 billion. It doesn't include the $20 billion compensation fund. Remember when President Obama... Sorry?
Yeah, that was actually going to be one of my specific questions of if you knew if this negated the $20 billion fund, if it was in addition to or on top of, and it seemed like you were answering that question right ahead of me.
There you go. Yes. See, that $20 billion compensation fund, that's the one that President Obama pretty much invited Tony Hayward, the CEO at the time, to the White House, and they talked, and he came out and said, yeah, okay, so we are going to have this $20 billion compensation fund that, and then we're not going to try to assert their right under the pathetic U.S. law that caps any oil spills at $75 million. So they made it very clear they were not going to assert that, and they were going to have that $20 billion compensation fund. A lot of that compensation fund has been paid out, but not all of it. I think they're up to about $16 billion right now, and that they used for immediate cleanup and for immediate assistance, cash assistance to businesses and individuals in the Gulf. So it doesn't include the $20 billion compensation fund. There is also more civil penalties that have to be determined. The Gulf states still have their interests to their fines, their state violations that would need to be paid. There are still individuals and businesses that have an agreement that they've worked on so far. I think it's up to $7.8 billion. This would be for a separate settlement for damages with individuals and businesses in the state that sued BP directly, and they have all been put together into a class action lawsuit. That $7.8 billion has not been approved yet by the judge, but it looks like it probably will be at this point. So that's a separate damages. That would settle everybody who wanted to sue BP personally under personal suits and business suits. And then on top of that, there's also the settlement of federal civil fines for violations of the Clean Water Act. The Clean Water Act, in 1990, after the Exxon Valdez spill, they increased the fines to $1,000 per barrel if it was determined to be negligence, and $4,000 per barrel if it was determined to be reckless disregard. So there's a huge incentive right now for BP to settle with the United States government before this particular aspect, the civil penalties for the violations of the Clean Water Act. There is a considerable incentive for them to settle that before this all goes to trial in late February in New Orleans.
Yeah, because at the rate of $4,000 a barrel with the millions upon millions of barrels of oil that were leaked into the Gulf.
206 million gallons.
Wow.
Being something like 5 million barrels, 42 gallons per barrel. And that's the difference between those two is that if they are only determined to be guilty of negligence, then $1,000 a barrel is a $3.5 billion fine. But if they're found to be reckless, then that is $20 billion, or up to $20 billion.
Well, the more money to help the states, to help the businesses, the people there try and recover is fine by me. But it was
definitely.
It was as if on cue. The day the news breaking about the BP settlement, we have another oil rig explosion in the Gulf. Now, this one apparently was not pumping oil at the time. Right. It appears that most likely 2 people have perished in this one body being already found in the Gulf, one still missing. Yeah. But it was almost Mother Nature saying, hey, guys, you're continuing to do the same thing over and over again, not learning from your mistakes. Did you also take it that way?
Well, the timing was just sad and unfortunate and tragic, and it does seem like, as a lot of people, environmental groups, when this settlement with BP came out, they said, that's kind of just a slap on the wrist because, BP had just had its third quarter results. It was finally profitable again, and its third quarter profits, that's, ending October 30th, for 3 months, it made in profit $5 billion. So here we have a criminal settlement of $4.5 billion, but that doesn't even touch, that's $1 billion less than the profit they made in the last 3 months.
Yeah.
So a lot of folks said that's, not really much of an incentive to rein in what they were calling a rogue industry that refuses to police itself and do the right actions to ensure the safety of both the environment and their workers. This new explosion down in the Gulf, thank God that there wasn't an oil spill to go along with it. Thank God there weren't more people killed. But the fact that, we still have 2 more people who died on behalf of oil trying to extract oil in the Gulf of Mexico, the timing was just tragic. And it does kind of also indicate that, again, that this is an industry that has not made the efforts necessary to make sure that they're operating as safely as possible. It sounds like this was human error. It was workers that were on an old platform that were trying to access an old well because, there are a lot of these old depleted wells where the company leaves because it's no longer profitable to try to pump well out of this old well. This is a company that specializes in reviving old wells and taking out the very last. And, they're not known for having a bad safety culture, kind of like BP had a reputation for being a very poor safety culture that put profits over people. But still, these are people who are out there working their butts off, and they're dying. Yeah. They're dying for oil.
They're dying for a substance that could be almost, virtually eliminated through technology, through green energy sources, at least, say, in our lifetime. And instead, instead, the New York Times is reporting, and I was just talking about this before we started speaking with you, New York Times is reporting in an article by Elizabeth Rosenthal on November 12th that the U.S. will soon overtake Saudi Arabia in the world's leading oil production by about 2017. And
it's a pretty stunning. It's a pretty stunning report that she's writing about. She's a good journalist. Elizabeth Rosenthal is the New York Times. This what she's writing about is the International Energy Agency, which is a private organization that they do this every year. They put out the World Energy Outlook report, and back in 2004, nobody knew that shale oil and that shale gas from fracking would be so accessible for the U.S. It wasn't profitable at the time. Now things have changed. The oil and gas industry has shifted as these new techniques, these unconventional drilling techniques, have become profitable finally for the companies. And we have this boom in shale oil and shale gas. That's when the oil and gas is embedded in a particular kind of shale rock, and it's hard to get out. And it's really expensive and destructive and uses up a lot of water to get it out. But it's worth it now because of the price of oil. And that's what they're referring to. And, there's a couple of caveats that come along with that report. They said, that if the rate of production continues for the U.S., if the rate continues, then the U.S. would have the highest producer, even past Saudi Arabia, by 2020. And then if the rate continues, which, there's a question as to whether it will or not, because these oil fields are reserves, but, nobody knows how long they'll be until they actually deplete.
Right.
So there's some technology that shows that these natural gas fields that are being fracked, they actually, putter out after about a year. But that may or may not, work with the International Energy Agency's calculations. But they also say that also requires that we have to keep up with the same rate of energy efficiency and cutting our use of oil, like with President Obama having doubled mileage requirements over the last couple of years. Since, what they had been not changed for 30 years straight, he finally was able to get some new mileage requirements for our cars and trucks. If that rate of energy efficiency and conservation continues and we're using less, then we would also stay up high as far as being both a producer and then eventually by 2030 becoming a net exporter of oil. So, those are two things that have to happen for those calculations to work out. But also, the most important part of the report that nobody seems to be talking about is at the end of it, the International Energy Agency says 2/3 of that oil has to stay in the ground if we are to avoid going past the 2-degree threshold that climate scientists have recommended to avoid drastic climate impacts.
Yep, I in fact have it highlighted here specifically to quote Ms. Rosenthal. The report warns, in referring to the International Energy Agency's report, the report warns that no more than 1/3 of the proved reserves of fossil fuels should be used by 2050 to limit global warming to the 2 degrees Celsius, as many scientists recommend.
Yeah, and that's a pretty stunning admission because the IEA used to not talk about this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And then probably about 2 to 3 years ago, somebody in there started reading the reports of the scientists and said, hey, wait a second, we can't burn all the oil that we have in our proven reserves, or we're talking about a catastrophic rise in temperature, something along the lines of 11 degrees, 12 degrees Fahrenheit on average versus the 2 degrees Celsius average global temperature that scientists have been warning. Right now, for people who don't know, right now we have risen probably about 0.8 degrees Celsius, so slightly less than a full degree Celsius since the industrial age. And this is based on today, the effects that we're seeing on our weather are pretty much, from only, say, up until the carbon dioxide that we've emitted since, the 30s and 40s. So we've had another several decades of carbon dioxide that hasn't begun to have an effect yet on climate, on the temperature, on raising the temperature, because, carbon dioxide has a long time that it hangs out in the atmosphere. And because we're still waiting to see the full effect of what remains that we've already put in, they estimate we've got about another 1.2 degrees or so that we're going to go up probably anyway, regardless of what we do. If we cut emissions today, we're probably still going to see a rise of probably 1.5 degrees Celsius. We're already starting to see what effects that has on our extreme weather.
Yeah.
With Hurricane Sandy, Irene, the droughts, the wildfires, the floods, all of that.
Yeah, recently, the Mississippi River drying up enough to not be able to put much of the larger boat traffic through. It just seems like, with all of these signs around us, we're going in the complete wrong direction and increasing oil production, increasing the risk of more explosions and more catastrophes. But thankfully, thankfully, we have, people like you doing great reporting and keeping people aware of this, and we do our best, but only because you make it so easy to find all the information and make sure to stay on top of it. So just thank you so much for everything you do. It's so vital.
You're welcome, and thanks for all that you're doing too. People need to hear about this. Progressive radio is one of the few places where you can hear what's actually going on, and without all the spin and the corporate influences. So this is vital stuff. We don't have a whole lot of time to take care of these things, but we have to talk about them first. So thanks for having me on to talk about that.
Absolutely. Thank you for getting up so early with us, Desi. We really appreciate it.
No problem.
We'll send you some coffee.
Okay.
Desi Doyen, everybody, of the Green News Report. You can check it out, of course, at bradblog.com, at Green News Report on Twitter, and you can subscribe on your, I believe it's Stitcher radio app. Yes, you can subscribe to the Green News Report, or you can hear it on almost every progressive news outlet. So, Desi, thank you very much, and hopefully we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks. Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye. Desi Doyen, everybody. The one and only. We love her. She is awesome, but we do have to run to a break. We're going to go ahead and run to a break. We'll be right back here on Talking Left with me, Danielle, and Shano. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back here on We Act Radio.
Nicer being red or yellow or gold or something much more colorful like that. It's not that easy being green. It seems you blend in with so many other ordinary things.
Hi, this is Tim Cormall from The Tim Cormall Show. Join me and my guests most weeks for a progressive roundtable discussion about politics, news, and other fun topics. We laugh a lot about the hilarious antics of the right-wing nutjobs, as well as have serious discussions about issues affecting all of our lives. You can check out The Tim Cormall Show at timcormall.com, and you can subscribe to the show for free in iTunes by searching for The Tim Cormall Show. You can also follow me on Twitter at twitter.com/Tim Cormall. That's CORRIMAL. So come on over and join in the fun at timcormall.com.
Filter-free radio.
Filter-free radio. Filter-free radio with Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Jacob Dean. With Jacob Dean and Skeptical Scott.
Make your voice heard. Unfiltered. Call the Filter-Free Radio comment line at any time. 202-6979-FFR. That's 202-6979-337.
I want to know what you think the most important issue is now moving forward. Is it climate change? Is it the economy? Is it jobs? The debt? What do you think is the number one issue? Is it single-payer for-profit health care? Is it the prison industrial complex? I think the number one issue is finding identity, and I want to say that as neutral as possible because I believe everyone everywhere needs to take a long, hard look in the mirror and say, am I going to be part of the people who come up with a sustainable energy solution that's conscious of climate change? Are we going to be the party that comes up with a real solution to the economy?
FilterFreeRadio.com.
You never know who or what you'll hear when you listen to the Nicole Sandler Show at RadioOrNot.com.
Your view is not being represented in this country because all of our views have been corrupted by money in politics. Remember, 94% of the time, the candidate who raises the most money wins.
That's the fact that we need to drive home constantly. It's all about the money. Dylan Radigan, you rock.
The Nicole Sandler Show, live Monday through Thursdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, or podcast anytime.
7,000 high school students drop out every school day. That's one every 26 seconds. So here's a 26-second message of encouragement.
Hi, I'm Stacy. Look, I've been there. It's tough. And I just want to say, if you find yourself feeling negative, use it as motivation. Let it be like the fuel in the fire to keep you going. 'Cause the best is yet to come. Seriously, you're capable of great things. Things you probably haven't even dreamed of yet. So don't quit now. See you at graduation.
Do you have 26 seconds to convince a student to stay at their desk? Now you can share your message of support at boostup.org. We can keep students in school. Visit boostup.org and take the first step. Brought to you by the U.S. Army and the Ad Council.
Hey, Dad, how do you throw a curveball? How do you build a fort? How do refrigerators run? How do fish learn how to swim?
Kids ask a lot of questions.
How high can you jump?
But you don't have to know every answer.
How many phone numbers are there?
Because you don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent.
How do cell phones work?
There are thousands of children in foster care who don't need every question answered.
What's electricity?
They just need you.
What's the moon made of?
For more information on how you can adopt, go to adoptuskids.org. A public service announcement from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt U.S. Kids, and the Ad Council.
The most important online radio station.
It's easier than ever to listen to SoFlo. On the air and everywhere. On any computer, any mobile device, iPhone, iTouch, and anywhere you are, just hit SoFloRadio.com. Tell your friends about South Florida's radio network, SoFloRadio.com.
I'm rocking the suburbs. You said that he was talented. I'm rocking the suburbs. I take the checks and face the facts. The sub producer with computers fixes all.
Welcome back to the last few minutes we have here on Talking Left. And perhaps after that we'll have to go get some more coffee because both of us are still half asleep in here. But we wanted to make sure you guys looked out for
I'm wide awake. I don't want to drink all the coffee on you.
Yes, that's why I said you're listening to like 18 times on that last.
What are we listening to?
Yeah, we're listening to Talking Left. Yeah, without enough coffee. We wanted to make sure everybody knew where not to eat, not to shop this upcoming Black Friday and beyond. Several employers, specifically Zane Tinkle of Applebee's, Greg Rayburn of Hostess, John Metz of Denny's, and John Schnatter of Papa John's have all come out and either cut workers' hours, fired workers, or increased their prices, all due to Obamacare. And this is why, while most of the companies, I think excluding Hostess, have also made political contributions. So they can afford to get involved in politics. They can afford to try and buy the election, but they can't afford to pay their workers a living wage. So as far as I'm concerned, they don't deserve anybody to patronize their business.
Yeah, and when it comes to, we're going to have to put 5% more on or charge X percent more on pizzas or whatever it is. Everyone down in Florida where the Denny's are, go in there and take pictures of their menus right now.
Yeah.
Take pictures and we'll look at the prices and see if they go up at all already. Adding that 5% on there is just a way to make a political statement. Prices go up.
Yes, prices go up.
The only thing that hasn't gone up the price of is the price of work.
Yeah, wages.
Actual labor. Not sitting around collecting checks from dividends, but actual labor, and that's the issue.
Well, and one group specifically is really standing up for their own rights as well as workers throughout the country on that matter specifically, and that's the Walmart workers, also, associates and warehouse workers alike. They are threatening to strike, planning about 1,000 strikes throughout the country on Black Friday, the biggest shopping day of the year.
And they've already begun.
Exactly. They've already begun. And that news breaks just as Huffington Post got their hands on the report from Walmart, an internal company document entitled Field Non-Exempt Associate Pay Plan Fiscal Year 2013, which is a document showing the rigid pay structure at Walmart and how difficult it is for their employees to ever rise above low-level poverty wages. Essentially, the document shows that flawless performance at Walmart could get you as much as a 60-cent raise per year. And that's the most you would ever be eligible, and it's only eligible to the 30% full-time employees. So somebody hired at $8 an hour can expect to make $10.60 in 6 years. How about we don't give them our business this holiday season? But people you should support. Nicole Sandler radioornot.com, George Rodriguez, Alex Lawson, Kimon Freeman, Pete Callahan, Daniel Marins, David Schuster, Rich Webster, everybody on the Radio or Not lineup, Kenny Pick, Jacob Dean, Skeptical Scott, Tom Schaefer, everybody there. Great shows over there, great shows over at We Act Radio. Thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you for downloading the podcast, whether that be on iTunes, YouTube, wherever you are, you can get it for free. And, of course, check us out on Twitter and Facebook at Talking Left. All the links for our guests are always up at the show, up after each show at talkingleft.com. But thank you to our listeners. You're the reason we do what we do. We'll see you after Thanksgiving. Have a great weekend.